You're on.
No maps.
Good morning. I'd like to call the Monday, October 16th meeting of the Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen to order. Can we please stand and honor America with the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, I'd like to make a comment, if I could. 2 Saturdays ago, there was a church service for Jim Libby, a contractor in town, and served on several boards in town. Just want to acknowledge his passing. I have a copy of his service if anyone wants to look at it, but Tufton Borough has literally hundreds of volunteers, and he was a good one. Let's go on to public input. We have a few minutes for public input.
Is that me?
No?
Oh, I have something.
Go ahead,
I
ma'am.
made a mistake in the article in the fire department. Adam had the overtime figures, and I did the $sign. The bottom of that same key is a 4. So I didn't lift my finger, so it says $4,000 something for overtime for Caleb Pike and 2 police officers. I said, well, that would be nice, but anyway.
Well,
I apologize. I hope it doesn't confuse anyone.
He will be here at 9:20, so...
Maybe he'll tell you too.
or whatever. No, I'm sure he'll understand.
I hate it when that happens.
Anything else from the public? Well, why don't we move right into our department updates. Jack, you going to come back in during construction of the dock? Okay. I'd like to introduce Susan Thistle, White Horse Addiction Center. Yep, come on down. I'm Lloyd Wood. Chip Albee. Bill Markison.
Nice to meet you.
And have a seat. Welcome to Tufton Borough. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's beautiful here.
Come on down. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hearing me this morning. I'm sorry you don't have a letter. I will send you one with the information. I think it's important to know that we need a lot of things. So, what I've found talking to folks in Carroll County is that certain towns prefer you to ask for certain things. So I can give you all of what we need, and then maybe you can tell me what you prefer.
Maybe you can start by telling us just a little bit about
Who
what
are
you
we?
do.
Yes. So, Who Are We? We're a nonprofit organization that started out of the founder was originally from Ossipee. He moved away to follow his career. He worked for UPS. He was a global director, setting up different sites for UPS all over the world. And when he heard about the epidemic, the opioid epidemic up here in New Hampshire, he decided to retire early and come up here and try and help out. And so the first year, they just came and set up shop and did everything for free. And he wound up hiring an NLADAC, which is a master level licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And it was just an NLADAC, he and his wife. And so then the second year, which was I believe 2015, they started to see clients there, and that was all for free. Part of it was for free, and then they started getting hooked up with insurance companies and were able to bill a little bit. They hired an assistant for the MLADAC, and but what they found is they needed to have more support with folks that knew how to run a business like this. And so, hence I came in last year, and we now have insurance companies billing. We have 4 in Linex, 1 Linex, and we have an RCO center, which they had started to work on, so we're at Center Ossipee right off of 16. They had a thrift store that they also began, and started our recovery resource center in front. So we now have a recovery resource center with 4 staff full-time and some part-time folks. And a thrift store where we everything is donated, and we then sell it to the public, and then we have an outpatient program which is funded somewhat by the county. And the county originally said, we don't want you going to the town. So when I actually got a call recently, and somebody said, we want to give you money, and I'm like, I can't take your money. So I had to go back to the town and say, look, if people want to give us money, how do we go about this? And they said they had a conversation and decided, okay, you can go to the towns, but you need to ask for something different than what we're giving you. So they support our outpatient program to some degree, and we have insurances that also support us. But what we do need is some funding to help support the clients themselves that are going through our program. Most of what they need is, a lot of our clients are living in the woods, believe it or not. I was shocked at the homelessness in Ossipee and the surrounding areas. It's hard to say where these people are coming from. I think we need to ask a little bit more questions. Where did you originate? Because now they're living in the woods in Ossipee, and we're starting to see as the weather gets colder, they're coming out in crisis and needing homes. So we have been getting them into treatment, residential treatment. A lot of times there aren't any beds, so we wind up putting them in our outpatient treatment. We have what's called an intensive outpatient program, which is 9 hours a week of group, 1 hour a week of individual. But also hooking them up with our recovery center. And so we do the best we can if they're in need of housing, but a lot of times they're coming in from the woods and doing our outpatient program and going back into the woods. So, helping them with funding for food, clothing, shelter. We do supply, if need be, clothing for them through our thrift store. Dental, there is no insurance for dental. It's hard to get. There are some places where you can get it, but there's all kinds of ties to that.
Doesn't the Tri-County cap on a dentist?
They don't, it's interesting. We can get them dental work, but there's certain parts of it that they don't cover. And so Tri-County wasn't able to help us with 2 of our clients. So when, depending on the drugs you use, they affect different parts of the body. And one particular drug, methamphetamines, affects your teeth. And so we have some that have really bad teeth. And we were able to get most of it covered through insurance because we set them up with insurance if we can. A lot of times we're giving free care until we get to that place where we can get them stable to sit with our case manager to do that. But there is a certain amount that is not covered. And for any of our clients to have to pay for anything substantial is difficult and can take a while. We'd like to get them, picked up, brought into shelter and help them with clothing, help them with food, help them with any uncovered medical expenses. The other thing is our thrift store manager is using a really old phone to talk on. She doesn't have a computer. She has one of those tablets. And so to have some equipment for her to operate effectively and be able to really expand the thrift store. We would like to have more operations like that where some of our clients go in there and they volunteer And so it just works out well if they're just starting out, to be able to start to do something, not employment-wise, but similar to employment where they have other people around to support them. We're kind of unique in Carroll County because we have an industry, we have the outpatient, and we have a recovery center. So what I would like to ask for is $2,500 to help support a lot of the uncovered equipment, materials, food, clothing, shelter, things that will help our clients move along.
So is the thrift store, was it a revenue generator? Is that what
To some degree, we
What's
do
the
make
purpose?
some, it's to help support the industry
So
in
there's a
ways. So there's some
revenue.
there, yeah, but not a lot.
How many beds do you have in your recovery resource center?
Okay, so it's not a residential facility. It's, we do expect to have a full continuum of care, hopefully by the end of next year, maybe the following. We thought it could be sooner, but, what we have is recovery support workers out there, so, it's like emotional support. They'll help them find resources in the area, similar to case management. But a lot of recovery support is about just helping the client to, or the guests, they call them out front guests, we call them clients and outpatient. But to help them feel comfortable knowing that somebody cares. And some of what they do is they take them on like field trips to have fun in sobriety and connection is a big deal for them. So any resources that someone may need who is in early recovery, that's what we do out there.
I know the reason why the county is reluctant to have you go to the towns is that it's essentially double dipping.
Right,
Because we're paying the county
right,
and then the county has charitable
yeah. I
purposes
understand.
as well.
Yeah,
And we have a budget for charitable purposes ourselves.
right.
So how are you gonna separate the funds?
Well, what I'm asking for today is different than what we get from them. We
But
use
it's all
that.
going into the same checkbook, I guess that's.
No,
the-
it's not.
Okay.
So we have it separated by department, so
Okay.
the county money goes to outpatient only right now. And then we have the thrift store, which is industry,
Mhm.
and then we have the RCO, Recovery Resource Center. So they're three separate, I have a
So
separate
what-
checkbook for,
your $2,500 request would go into which operation?
I'm looking at the thrift store and the RCO.
So two. RCO is the acronym for what?
Recovery Resource Center.
Thanks.
Recovery Center Organization, I think is why it's RCO.
And you're looking at private donations as well? Is that how you support yourself?
Yeah, if you figure one person we have funding that'll go to one person for dental work that isn't being covered is $750 for one person. And we
without,
do about 70 clients a week.
without violating HIPAA or any of that nonsense, do you have folks from Tufton Borough in your program?
We do. I
Okay.
actually looked at that. We had 4 last year for the year. I had 3 from July to September.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why, but
So I'm wondering if it's not part of our welfare budget as opposed to charitable purposes. I don't know, just a thought.
it's a tough one.
Well,
I had a question.
Okay.
Have you dealt with the lady who is in charge of the homeless with the school district? You know,
Who is her? What
I don't want to give her name out because she's low-key, but the school district is responsible for kids that are homeless. I'm the truant officer, and I bump into a few a year. And there's a federal program that reimburses the school district for that. What I'm thinking is I'll get your name and address and I'll have her contact you, not because that you're competing for resources,
Right.
but or competing for clients, but she may have some contacts or people who offer to provide services that you folks could use.
They're
So what I'll do is,
probably under the Bureau of Homeless and Housing, I would imagine.
Right.
And we don't get a lot of children that are homeless. So most of ours is 18 and over.
I'm just thinking if there was a motel someplace that says, I'll make a couple of rooms available, wouldn't it be nice to have
Yeah.
that resource? And I'm not being presumptuous as to
No.
how you handle issues, but
Right.
merely that you have something.
Right.
It's a bigger issue than we think.
Yes.
I
It's
remember
huge.
2008, I think it was, we got a study over at the county. It was like Grafton, Carroll, and Coas had 3,700 homeless people. That's like the whole town of Tufton Road, a few more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You've characterized it very accurately, yes.
And it's not just the homeless folks. I mean,
Right.
not all of our clients are homeless. We have some. So
I bump into a lot of couch surfers.
yes, yes. Or they could be living in. Unfortunately, most of our clients are poverty. Most, 90%. And so, whether they're living, even some of them that are living in a home, it's not real great. We do have some that are, doing okay and fine, and we don't have to ask for funding for that. But there's so much that other funding doesn't cover, doesn't support, or they are supporting us to some degree, but not enough. We are going every day, all day long.
Yes. Well, unless there's anything else, thank you. Please submit all the paperwork.
Well,
The town has been supportive in the past. It does go through a budget process.
Sure.
But,
right.
there's a
Well,
lot
at the
of...
next budget meeting, I'll bring it up and see
Yes.
what the budget committee has their thoughts about it.
Yeah, hopefully my letter will help
Yeah.
understand.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, thank you. Nice to see a friendly
Thanks for
face.
coming in.
All right,
And thank you
yes.
for what you do for all our communities. Okay?
Travel safe now.
Thank you.
See it.
We're right on schedule. Next will be Chief Thompson. Good morning, Chief. How are you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
We just saw each other 2 weeks ago.
It's like every day.
Busy man?
Even beyond California.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
One thing that I didn't put on here, apparently in the newspaper, there was some incorrect figures
Right,
that
yeah.
were
I
provided.
beat you to it.
There's already been
There's already been a mea culpa.
Granite State News is paying for those rates.
So, those were not our figures, so. EMS calls,
Is that
100.
fake news? Is that what that is?
It's called typo.
Our fire calls were at 169, EMS 443, surface calls 41, special details 21, for a total of 474 for the year. Furnace inspections 18 for gas, oil 8, wood pellet stove inspections 5, life safety 12 for a total of 43. The repairs for engine 4 were not bad as what I expected. They totaled $1,128.37 to get it to pass its pump inspection test. The tank pump was replaced along with a test port and the line that goes to that. And it also passed its state inspection while it was there. The mobile radios that were a grant, not a grant, that were a warrant article are almost installed in all the apparatus. Diamond Ledge Electronics from Sandwich is completing that installation. The radios were bought from Ospey Mountain Electronics. probably in another week or so, everything will be installed with the apparatus. Caleb Pike and Captain Caleb Pike and firefighter Skip Galvin are completing fire prevention this morning as we speak for the school. Captain Pike is on light duty until released by his doctor due to back issues.
And that wasn't a workers' comp.
No, not unless it's a continuation from the issue that he had this winter. They haven't determined that or not, but right now we're saying no. Central Station sprinkler system was inspected on October 6th. The tests were fine. They did inform me that an internal test, which has to be done every 5 years, will need to take place next year. So they gave me an estimate of $1,000 for that internal test, and the regular testing and review is $450. I'll be meeting with an electrician to go over the town buildings tomorrow in reference to backup generators and for budgeting for 2018 if there's anything to do so. And that, just a quick
Speaking of budgeting, how's your budget coming?
My main fire department budget has been in for some time, and I've already changed it because I did not get an email in reference to STEP. We had put the COLA in, but not the STEP, but that has been changed,
So
and
you got that
that's
done.
all there.
And
The only thing that is not in is government buildings as far as heating and stuff like that. I have the ambulance stuff. I'm just waiting for one thing with that, and emergency management, and the others have been turned in.
And $1,000 that you paid for testing, is that included?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's all in the budget.
As usual, he hits everything.
Well, I think it's you know, I know Joe needs me to editorialize, but the California situation is an excellent example of why we have mutual aid.
Right,
I mean, those people would be in a world of hurt.
right.
And I don't know if we've followed up on Max's demand for a categorical mutual aid review, but we need to probably this winter go through what we have.
Yep, and we can. For example, we did go to Wakefield about a week ago for a structure fire on an island. They
Under a pond, yeah.
yes, they were assisted by other departments as well as ourselves, and people that had pontoon boats that were on the lake itself. So yes, everyone works together, mutual aid, and the same way if we had that, anyone that has a boat would come provide us mutual aid. So yes, I will take the time as soon as I get a few minutes to go through and the archives to find that different stuff, but it's a matter of, it's not computerized, it's digging in files that are 1980.
Can I just add something? I was impressed, Chief, with your briefing, gave a review. Yet to get people out there and equipment out there when everything is nice and clean and it's still daylight, and people step up with the pontoon boats. But when it's dead of night and dangerous and the stuff is dirty and messy, that's not when you need to be using pontoon boats and people who,
Right.
and I thought that you said that you weren't being critical. It's just that it's part of the process. The fire's not done when the fire is out.
Right,
So
no,
you were very well spoken.
We originally were not going to be launched, and then they decided that there should be a boat that can get people back and forth quickly if someone gets injured. And then basically it went from there is when you get done, everything is just plain grimy, covered with ash. You don't really want to be putting that back into someone's personal boat when you have something that is there as far as a work type boat that does it every day, that type of thing. So I think everyone worked very well together, so I'm mutual aid for that.
Anything else for the chief? I have one thing. We're going to be talking to Jack in a few minutes about Union Wharf reconstruction. And I know you have a piece of equipment that you put there, and it's put on that side of the dock for a very good reason.
Right.
If you'd like to hang around and be part of the
Sure.
conversation, it's...
And I'm scheduled to meet with you on the 20th, I believe, for budget.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Advocate Chief Shigori.
Jack, you want to come up?
It's Mr. Parsons.
Mr. Parsons? How you doing, sir?
I'm good, yourself?
What do you want to begin with?
I guess Union Wharf.
Okay. Do you have Folsom Design, are you involved in that with the library?
Yep.
You want to just brief the board on that?
As far as I know, you approved $1,700 for a Folsom Design for the library design. You said you'd have the design done this fall. We're gonna need a backhoe to dig a test pit, which they will come and inspect the hole so they can do the design.
And we need 300 for a permit,
That's a state submittal fee for any septic system, so that's,
so we'll vote on that today.
and then we'll have a plan so it can go out to bid, so.
Okay. We might need to have you guys vote on the $300. Okay, Union Wharf, why don't you begin with that?
Well, there was a bunch of questions to be answered here, I don't know if you have the list from
Yes,
what I sent, so.
many questions.
So does the town intend to keep the timber piles either side of it, or do you want a different design? I mean, that's a question that, what you want it to look like, so.
Well, I guess where I would start is there a deficiency in the design that's there, or is what we're seeing just deterioration because it's old?
I think a little of both, probably. I mean, the timber piles on the outside obviously get grabbed by ice, there's nothing you can do about it. Unless you want to level all the way around the whole pier, and that doesn't really need to be done, so. If it was a different design to get rid of some of those piles, I would think that would be the way to go.
So what are our alternatives?
They would have to design it, that's why they want to know. It'd be smooth sides, obviously, there'd be pilings, but it'd probably be buried underneath it, or inside the boards. It depends on how it was designed, so I don't know. If you're gonna put concrete in the planks on the side, or wood. They need to have these questions in before they can come forward with a design, because they can't give you 3 or 4 designs, because the cost would be expensive.
One thing that you gotta think about with that is that they tie up to those.
Correct.
So you gotta remember to put something for them to tie up if you went with a different design.
Yeah, I would just think the pilings would probably be on the inside, and the outside would be smooth, so the ice wouldn't grab them, so there would be something to tie up.
Okay.
And then do you want to keep it the same width, or do you want it narrower? I mean, I know it's wider, so the fire department and ambulance, whatever, can drive out there where they need to. So I would think this width should stay the same.
I agree.
Yeah.
And do you want it the same way? Do you want it dirt and grass in the beginning? Or do you want a different surface on the top? That was, a question on here.
Does it make a difference as far as maintenance and life of the structure?
I would think it'd probably make a little difference in permitting maybe, but I don't know about the life. I mean, what's there? Obviously infiltrates, the rain gets on it and it runs in, as opposed to being a hard surface that run off the edges. So it might last longer the other way with this hard top. I'm not sure, that would be a designer question, so.
Yeah, that's where we do Island Day too, so you want, because we put that heavy containers down on that.
Correct.
Right, so,
Yep.
yeah.
So multi-purpose facilities, not just for a few
I guess
pleasure boats. that
we'd
nice-
have to talk to DES and see what they're,
Yeah, that would be
as far
probably
as the
there.
hard surface is concerned, because if we
Correct.
put concrete down, they're gonna weigh in on what.
Right, and obviously the cost of that's obviously gonna be much more too to build it, so.
Right.
I guess my basic thought with respect to this is that the current configuration, I think, basic configuration works fine.
Correct.
I like the idea of arranging the pilings so that they're less susceptible to ice damage and that sort of thing.
Correct.
But in terms of changing the width, the basic construction, you know,
Yeah.
I guess my thought is, if it works the way it is now, if we go totally different design, then are we gonna raise a bunch of situations that we haven't had to deal with in the past? If there are problems caused by the current surface of the wharf, or the width of the wharf that we want to correct, this is an opportunity to do it. But
Correct.
other than that, my thought is we'd bring it up to, you know, to full, I don't want to say capacity, but
Function?
yeah, to full function.
Yeah, I would put in this cost dredging the other side of it so both sides can be
Right.
used, because the other side is
Absolutely.
very
Yes.
shallow.
Right,
you know.
yeah.
Can this be done in segments? Can you do one side a year, or?
I would,
Because what I'm thinking is,
well, the side that's more docked on now is really deep enough the whole way in, so that side doesn't really need much. Obviously, you could replace the pilings or whatever, but.
you know, if we were to do something
once.
radical and he not have a place to put his emergency.
Well, we have power in Melvin, so the boat could be put in Melvin.
Right.
So that's not an issue in my eyes, so. I think
Okay.
that's an
I
issue.
think
Well, that's a nice option, isn't it?
Right.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Other than Union Wharf is probably, it's certainly a more central place
Right.
for the fire
correct.
boat to go out of
Yep.
and reach the island. But, yeah,
Unless we can get, a deal with someone, one of the association members that has a slip
mhm.
on the main pier, it's hard to say. But I think that can be done around. I mean, this question here was, there's electrical there, do you want to reactivate it? Yeah, we'll leave the power there.
Mhm.
Does anyone know when the last substantial work was done out there?
The only thing I can find is back in, the date in my head. It was just for the boat ramp. It wasn't for the
Right.
wharf itself. The only thing that was done on the wharf was the decking was replaced. That was it. But the only.
I'm trying to think in the 17 years I was on the budget committee and the 5 years here, I can't remember
No, I
any
remember when-
substantial.
It was patched a little bit over.
When Rich built that sewer initially,
Right.
I remember there was some work done on that.
Right.
Because there's some questions here that I can't answer because we have no plans on how it was built.
Right.
Now, they had a,
They need to do a survey of it, or how they gonna?
Well, they wanted some of these answers they know what to design. They just want to come out 4 times and design it 3 different times. They don't want to know what they want to keep the cost somewhat down.
what it basically is 3 different designs. You have the wooden structure,
There's a wooden structure at the
and
end.
you have some cement, and then you have
And I think
some
the cement is probably built the same way underneath, it's just was topped with cement,
tops with cement.
I would think. Maybe not.
And do we want to address the boat launch at all while we're there?
I've never had any complaints with that.
All right.
That's-
I think what's there is adequate.
That was done because it was a permit from the Corps of Engineers, and Rich Colby did that, I believe, because there was a
What
permit
does
on
it
back
mean?
for that.
What does it mean when a grant in right exists for this structure?
I don't know, because I found
Is it a
with that
right-of-way
permit,
ownership?
I don't know.
I did research that's listed in our town report as town property.
Correct, and that's what I figured was town property. Which listed as town property, we got a permit for the boat ramp, which is pretty much attached to it, and the state was fine with that permit, so I would assume we're all set with that.
Well, if you guys use it, if you have any questions or comments, or you stumble across something,
The only thing I would say is when you're talking about the timbers on the outside, that section of cement is fairly long. And if you take the timbers on the outside, you're not gonna have anything
to protect it from the ice.
to tie the boats up to. It would be unusable space as far as docking.
No, we'd still have something to tie the boats to, it's just with the pilings on the outside of the boards, the ice grabs the pilings and just pushes them right over. So if it was just boards and then pilings on the inside, the ice would slide against the wood and wouldn't rip the pilings up, but there would still be something there to tie the boats to.
That's outside the concrete.
Not necessarily outside the concrete. You would have a smooth surface on the outside and then the piling up. So we're only talking
Okay.
a couple inches to go to.
Yeah, because I can see it both ways as far as surface wise. The hard surface is good for when you're filling trucks and stuff like
Right.
that, as far as with water, so you're not leaving holes for people to trip in, but
Mhm.
we usually rake that stuff back. But you start loading trucks and stuff as far as like barges and things like that, then you start destroying the hard surface if it was tar or vehicles turning on it and stuff. I think the dirt works.
Yeah,
Fairly
the only
well.
way you could do it is with actual concrete.
Correct,
If you were
yeah,
gonna do a
asphalt would
pier,
last, yeah.
You can't do it with ice. Plus you have the oil issues.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I think the dirt works out.
Now, as far as the permitting process, do we need to budget money for next year, or? We haven't talked dollars at all.
That's right, because they haven't got a design yet, because they need these questions answered before they can start the design. And then they would know, I would think, probably before December, I would think, how much the permit would be. An estimate of it, so.
And is it fair to say it isn't like the dock of the pier is about to disappear or fall apart?
No, it just gets washout spots, because some of the boards, some of the pilings have been moved on the outside, and the seams of the boards are behind the pilings have opened up, and the rain gets through it, and the water, and it's, you know, it's
A
undermined.
maintenance issue.
Right.
Anything else on this issue? Any other questions?
Do you have enough information from us?
Yeah, he was
on
gonna get rid of the
years ago?
pilings on the outside.
Yeah.
And pretty much top-wise, the same way it is now, gravel, grass to a hard surface to wood at the end. And then a dredge on the right-hand side of it. Makes sense?
Yeah.
To shift gears, any luck on the contractor who's gonna clean the buildings?
I have called twice and left messages, I have emailed, and I have gotten no answer.
What can we do to help?
Go to his house, I don't know.
What do you folks wanna do? I mean,
I don't know what else I can do. I mean, he came originally and gave us the price and all that, it's a reputable company, and it's just, I'll send another email, but.
okay.
Well, I'm wondering, maybe this is his busiest season or something.
He's always busy.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. I'll do it again and see if I get another answer.
Again, thank you for,
Well, not another answer, any answer, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Anything else
Yep.
today? Thank you for your many
Yeah.
different efforts. Clay? Thank you, Chief. Clay, come on down. Do you have any good news for us, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, I think Andy's out there for you if you,
Okay.
because he was before, but,
Well, he has to make an appearance.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought he was out there. He was talking to someone in the
Okay,
hallway, so.
he's talking some.
Sorry about that, I thought he was out there.
Have a seat.
This will be real quick. Well, I've already done the department update earlier, so. And budget's through the budget committee, so that's all complete. This is reference to Spectrum. We got the contract in from Mike Dugan. And I was gonna do a white paper on it, but really, it's self-explanatory. Right now, we're paying $113 a month for phone and cable, our phone and computer. And the contract for Spectrum is $8 more a month, and that's bundled for the whole package. So that'll give us all capability. I've reviewed the specific contract. First of all, before I would really like to thank a few people just in public. Karen did 99.95% of the work.
Thank you, Claire.
Getting with Time Warner and then Spectrum, very frustrating work because it's a lot of phone calls and not being answered and trying to re-up and company change and trying to get all this stuff, so.
That was nice of you, thank you.
Well done. We took a program which was astronomical in cost, and finally got them down to waive $5,000 of the fee, so it's a very manageable cost now. So Jeff Hayes, the executive director of Lakes Region Planning, helped us out immensely, gave us a lot of good ideas, and also put us in touch with Carol Miller from New Hampshire Division of Economic Development for a wideband promotion and expansion in the state. And Carol touched base with an awful lot of people as well. And she touched base with people that touched base with the end results in Spectrum that needed to hear from them. And Melinda Poor at Charter Communications worked with Karen quite a bit and got us this very, very good deal. It's a good deal for Spectrum and it's a good deal for us, because once we get connected up there, all those other houses fall within that radius and they have the option to hook up the cable. And once that happens, then it expands even further, which is a win-win for everybody. I went through the contract in detail. I think you have a copy of it. The only change I would like for you to be able to vote on the contract and approve it, and have the chairman sign it on Friday when he signs the checks. But there's just a mistake that I think needs to be fixed, and it's on the first page where it says billing address, attention to, and then it's got 20 Sergeant's Crossing. We don't want them sending checks to there. That should be, the billing address should be the 240 Middle Road, Center Tuckahoe, right?
That's
Box
correct,
98.
yeah, and
Post office box
I
98.
did put a line through a couple of things on our copy.
Okay.
Perhaps they could just initial.
Well, that's why I was hoping you could call and just talk him through. The service address, that's correct. We need
Okay,
that as a
yeah.
service address, which automatically pops up on the top of the page. But the billing address should be that one. And that's also, again, repeated on the next to the last page, the service agreement, where it says billing address down here in the city.
And I
That
think
should be
my
the-
name was wrong or something too. A
Yeah,
couple little things, yeah.
and the last page under acknowledgement, when you establish that communication for 911 calls, that billing address needs to be the correct billing address. So I'll give you those,
Yeah, that'd be great.
those
Okay.
three.
Okay.
But hopefully then you all have enough information on the program that can vote on it. And this won't occur until, into 2018, so it doesn't affect this year's.
Page 3 is the contract term, 36 months.
Correct, 3 years?
Yep. And then the construction fee is $6,261.66.
It's actually a little bit more than that because there's a connection fee.
And the total is $6,360.68.
And we have that in the maintenance line. That and the
For next year, right? Yep.
So that's it.
Other than the typographical errors, which I agree need to be updated, are we ready to vote on the substance of the contract, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll so move the total of $6,360.68 for 36 months.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, and when we're in signing checks Friday, it'll be my responsibility to sign that.
I really appreciate it, and I'd also like to thank Lloyd for when Time Warner originally changed over to Spectrum. Lloyd contacted some people down in headquarters that he knows, and that greased a lot of wheels as well. If it was just me, I'd still be sitting in the woods up there. So,
Clay,
thank
you make a difference. Thank you for what you do for the town.
Thanks, Clay.
Anything else on this matter? If someone could get the chief.
I'll try. No go? Thanks. We did have someone come and catch him in the hallway, so I
Yep.
don't know if that was it.
You have a great Monday.
Oh, you bet, you too. Winter's coming.
Quiet.
She was right, yeah.
Have a good one.
Right there. Could you give a call?
Oh, yeah, I'll take care of it.
How's it going? He's tied up in the office with a person.
Okay. Why don't we go with budget reviews? Is Heather available? It's a little bit early, but
Thanks, Joe.
thank you. Joe, you're getting your exercise
Yeah.
today. This is called aerobic videotaping.
He's the runner.
Yeah.
You need an intercom system.
We're ahead of time here, so welcome to our meeting. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
Okay, we're here to talk about 4140.
Do you have any specific questions? I mean, the budget's pretty much follows the same suit. However, this year we had 3 elections. Our town elections, the primary, state primary in September, as well as the general election, state general election in November. So that's the increase that you see is just paying those folks for helping us and all the advertisement and public notices that goes along with that.
Dinner?
Okay. Dinner. Yes.
It's always a good
We
dinner.
provide dinner
It's always
for all our elections.
And your expenses have got up $200-something. What are those expenses?
more elections.
Yeah, I
Are
do
those
have
elections as well?
a little bit more as far as elections are concerned. Because now we print our letters in-house as regards to our renewal letters. Before, we used to pay the state to do that before we switched over to doing the e-reg. Now the state won't do that for us any longer, so we do that all in-house. So I'm finding that the actual cost for printing off of that printer is a little bit more expensive. Those cartridges run about $200 a piece. So I'm having to get an extra one, whereas I normally didn't have to do that before. So it's a little bit of that increase.
I have no questions, as usual. Everything is...
So even though after the past elections where both the Republican and the Democratic parties told us that those are private and not subject to state law, we haven't gotten any money out of either of those parties?
No, we have not. Not that I'm aware of. Not
Even
at the
though
local
they
level.
own the elections, we have nothing that we can do about it. We still have to pay for it.
The check with the state, right. We still have to pay for it as a town, right.
And everybody got COLA and stuff.
I put in what had been submitted in regards to that pay scale, yes, that Karen had given us, so.
And you're not expecting that you're gonna go over this year?
No, I do not believe I will at all.
Then I'm done with her.
What's your pleasure, board?
Thanks.
I will move approval of 4140 and the grand total amount of $84,528.
I'll second
There's a
that.
motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Again, thank you for what you do for the
You're
community.
welcome. Thank you.
Who else are we
Oh, we got Jack.
Jack.
doing?
Jack is back.
Parsons.
Jack.
Jack is
Mr.
back.
Parsons.
Mr. Parsons.
Mr. Parsons.
You have the floor, sir.
Any questions?
As usual, no.
I have one comment. I'll make on it.
Wait,
I'll wait.
okay. Fuel went down,
On the vehicle maintenance,
okay.
if you don't get the vehicle, that line will be 3,000, not 1. I'm just saying. Because it needs this.
Okay,
a bunch
so
of work
this-
next year.
This is premised upon a new vehicle.
Correct.
Which is gonna be a warrant article.
I told you so, I don't know how you're
Well,
doing it, so yes.
it's,
Last vehicle I
project
bought in
that you
2008 was, that was leased and it was in my budget.
and this year, you've
I
submitted a
submitted
project
a
to
project
CIP.
to CIP,
and
correct.
That would be a purchase.
And the book value next year will be about $3,000 for that vehicle. So
You're
what I
not,
have now.
you're not listening, obviously, you don't list any revenue, but how was your revenue this
It's 3,000 over last year right now, or maybe more. It's over last year. It's, yeah,
Was it 20 last year?
21, I think it's only right now, actually, just look it up, I could've looked it up.
year? I'm okay with that.
And some of these, if you look at
We got
that, I have a bunch left over, but there's some dues that get paid for next year, at the end of the year, it happens every year.
So you're
Yeah.
not expecting to go over,
I am not, no.
and we've got 1,084 increase in your budget, which is primarily or
It's all
exclusively
salary.
salary.
Correct.
Cool.
Move approval of 4240 in the grand total amount of $61,597.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Would you repeat that number, Bill? 61,000?
$61,597. Hey, Jack, while you're here, oh, sorry. We have a couple of continuing projects in the CIP from previous years that we just had dollars thrown at. One is the Union Wharf project, and we had like 17,000 in there. And, yeah, which is what we're talking about now, getting a price on.
Okay, yeah.
So what I'd like to do is guesstimate an update, is that, not knowing anything, do you think it's gonna be a $25,000 project, a $50,000 project?
To do the work or to get the permit?
No,
Plan and all that.
to do the work. So,
Oh, more than that,
okay,
I would think.
all right.
I'm scared, but I
75,000.
think it's more than, probably.
Okay.
I'm sure it's pretty much all gonna be torn apart and redone from the water up, so.
Lake Road.
Lake Road is, the slab has been poured.
Yep, but we had, like 2 years ago, we had a $150,000 estimate to do the road, the drainage, and the wall.
No, that was 365,000.
306, all right.
Because the original plan to do that boat ramp was done with a cofferdam.
Right.
And a cofferdam is $60,000 right off the bat.
Right.
You haven't got any work yet, you just put the dam up, so.
So the ramp is gonna be done. We still have issues with the wall,
Correct.
so
It's,
throw against the wall, what do you think a number to deal with that is?
That's what the engineer said.
yeah.
This is what he said for the boat ramp. Do you want to get back?
That wasn't the engineer, that was actually, I think, from the one bid I got.
Right there.
Correct, from Mike Latuba. Yep.
I can give you a copy of that. That's fine.
And obviously, we're getting the boat ramp done this year for 25 grand. So.
Right.
And that price there was 150
Right.
to be done in the wet instead of in the dry. Big difference.
So it should be 125.
So this, all right, so this estimate is saying that
It was 300.
culvert, wall, and dredging is
350.
No,
Well, that's-
without the ramp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Culvert wall and dredging is 160,000. Right.
It's 1,000 square feet of wall replacement. Dredging is 3,000 square feet, and culvert replacement is 50 feet, 50 square feet.
That was just the
This was part of the permit,
Yep.
and I'll give you 2 copies of this if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The culvert itself works fine, it's just where it comes out, and it's just fixing the end of it, so.
Right. Well, and it'll give us something for planning, and then hopefully we can be a little creative with that, like we did with the boat ramp, and
Right.
and end up with something that we don't pay the long.
I mean, you
dollar
have
for.
that 70, correct, that's the round number, right, the 70,000
For what?
that you got from the state.
Yes,
So,
yes.
getting the plans to do the wharf and all that, maybe someone go in there and pick away at it and use
Yeah.
that up and get 3/4 of it done, I don't know.
Yep,
Well, you made an interesting point, is the original engineer had what they call a dry system.
That's in Lake Road, correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
right.
And you have, that's what the engineer came up with, and that's what you have to build to. You
Right.
can't change it up, so the new engineer we got showed it with a siltation curtain, and it's much easier.
Right,
That's the way it was done back in the 60s. Tom
Yeah.
did it.
yeah. Thank you,
Okay?
And I'll make these copies available too.
thank you.
Did we vote on the Parks and Rec?
Not yet, but I know.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Yes.
Gina was gonna come in to speak to you. She's
Yeah.
planning on coming in.
Okay.
They want to come.
Isn't she working with the camp people to supply lifeguards, things like that? I know I spoke to Kevin
Yeah.
and Brent about it.
But I don't think that's going to change the budget. She's just looking at.
And that was something that she welcomed, so.
All right, so we'll wait until she comes in.
Okay, so we'll postpone that. Okay, so is Gina coming in today?
Yes, but I didn't have her scheduled till 10:35, so.
Okay, well, that's reasonable. Let's go on with review and approval of minutes. We'll start with October 6th. Excuse me, we'll start with October 2nd, the 9 a.m. meeting. Does anybody have a copy? I have nothing to change. Yes, I do, on page 2. Next to last sentence, it should be Rod Wood will research if utilities are being taxed for both active and inactive poles.
Page 2.
Right here.
Oh, and the top of the page, okay.
Right there.
And can you repeat that, please?
The first word of the next to last sentence is Rod Wood will research.
Not Mr. Woodland, might be Lloyd Wood. Huh? Yeah.
I have nothing else.
Oh, I guess I'm confused. I don't understand that, I guess. I have a Mr. Wood, not a Chairman Wood. That's correct, right? Or no?
Rod, please.
Oh, sure, add Rod, sure. Okay, I misunderstood. Okay.
That does good for
I-
Yeah.
I don't have any,
wood and wood.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes of October 2nd.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Next is Selectmen's work session, Friday, October 6th, 9 a.m.
I just got one correction.
Go ahead.
Second page, under transfer station maintenance, second sentence, The selectmen increased the amount to $10,500.
Oh, yes, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all I had.
I have nothing more.
Move approval is corrected.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. For October 6th, minutes, non-public minutes for 10:58. I have no changes.
Move approval as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's 3-0. I'll make a motion that they be unsealed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Okay. Let's go to signature file. This is the regional electricity bid result and opportunity contract at the group rate. Would you like to address it?
I would. This is a project that Lakes Region Planning has been working on since the spring. The idea being that as a group purchasing electricity, we can reduce the per kilowatt cost, per kilowatt hour cost that we pay for electricity. And they received a number of bids, and the lowest bid was provided by Provider Power, and then the next lowest bid was presented by an outfit called Constellation. The way they structured the process, they were going to present, and they did present the two lowest bids to all of the participating towns for their vote and approval. And the next step at this point is that this body sends back a document called intent to sign that indicates that we will sign a contract with the selected supplier that gets at least a 2/3 majority vote of the participating communities. I had a concern in that it's possible that even though the other supplier's price is substantially higher, that it could be the one that got the vote of the most communities. Don't know why it would, but and my concern is that if we sign this letter, this intent to sign document that says that we'll go with whoever it is, we could end up with a higher bid that is more than we're paying today for electricity. So I reached out to LRPC on Friday. I was not able to get them by phone. I emailed them and told them what we're going to do. Haven't heard anything back. But what I'm suggesting is that we alter this document so that we indicate that we will sign a contract with the winning bidder if the low bid is the winning bid. I think legally we're on solid ground there because, as we all know, under RSA, if we put a project out to competitive bid, that as a community, we're required to take the lowest competent bid.
But I agree with where you're going with this.
Right.
And I think the concern is that we don't want to pay more than we're currently paying.
Right.
So maybe we should structure the change to say that. Because maybe not take the lowest bid, but take for whatever reason, take a higher than lowest bid, which would still save us money.
But, well, all right.
I'm just, we're just doing a lot of hypotheticals here.
Well, what I can tell you is that Provider Power's bid is for 7.31 cents per kilowatt hour. And we're currently at 7.47 cents with,
Obviously close.
yes, 2% below. And of course, this is a rate that is that will remain the same going forward, whereas the co-op's price, yeah, and could very likely go up. The other bidder's price for us would be 8.62 cents per kilowatt hour, which is 12 cents or 1.2 cent higher than what we're paying currently. So the chance that we would spend less with his contract than what we're spending now is very, very slim. So that's why I suggest that we sign this with a caveat that says we're in as long as everybody is rational about this and votes for the.
So is it a one-page intent to sign?
It is.
So there are no conditions? I mean, we can't, I'm wondering how they could obligate us to sign anything with just one page. But I guess that's what your alternatives.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And again, I will tell you, for those communities that Eversource is a supplier, there's a huge savings.
Yeah.
For us, it's based on current rate, it's about 2%. Not a huge savings, but a little bit. And again, it locks the price in, and it does protect us against any the upward fluctuation. It's possible that the co-op's price is going to go down and we're going to pay our fixed rate, but I would say we're not going to pay hugely more with the power supply agreement than we possibly could with co-op.
Isn't it just very simple that we will go with option number 1, not with option number 2?
Right.
And where on that form can we say that?
Well,
The other thing is,
what I've added in here is in bold, that says that that's what we'll.
and this has to be signed today, not Friday?
Has to, they need to receive it by tomorrow. So the next step is they will send us after all of these forms are back, they'll send us the final contract, which has to be executed on the 25th and by everybody. And it has to be done the same day because, of course, power prices on contract fluctuate with over time. So that's why they're looking for a signature date on the 25th.
This agreement is made, would today's date go in there?
Yes, yeah.
What is the board's wish?
So you've changed that letter to read something that you're more comfortable with?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we have the chairman sign it.
Second?
Any further discussion? I need to fill in, this agreement is made this 16th day of October?
Yes, correct.
The only other place for me to sign is where it says signature of authorized representative.
That's correct.
Did we vote? All those in favor say aye.
There you go. Aye.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So you're doing two things. One is you're voting for the lowest bid. And then you're also saying if the lowest bid doesn't win,
That we are not.
you are not going to
I
go
think,
along with
and
it.
I think we're alluding to the fact that if the lowest bid isn't lower than what we're currently paying,
Well, see, that's the third thing,
we're
yeah.
not gonna
Right.
buy in. But there's
So
no
you're also
contract.
saying that,
This
yeah.
is an agreement to sign.
You're letting them know. if you're
one-page
concerned.
agreement to sign. I don't think it's an enforceable agreement, but they'll think it
Now,
is.
will you be available to sign the contract on the 25th? And this is, in talking with Jeff, it's, you can sign it, you don't have to go there, you can sign it here sometime that day, so let it be signed and then faxed back to them.
Yes. Any
Thank
more issues on electrical energy? Thank you for your sticking with it, it's appreciated.
Well, LRPC has done a lot of work to bring this together. It's one of a number of initiatives, I think, that member towns sort of came together on in the spring, and you know, how can we do some things together that maybe will benefit everybody? And I think this is one that I'm aware of, and it's you know, coming to a decision point, so that's good.
Okay, next is land use change tax. This is for property at map 65-3-7. There's a couple of acres that are being taken out of current use. And what is your board's wishes? You had a question and you spoke to Rob.
Yeah, I spoke to our assessor, and I guess we've, in the past, the board has adopted a conservative approach to land change taxes with regard to
Mhm.
resources. We can assess as much as $1 a cubic yard of gravel. This is nowhere near that. So I guess my comment would be that we need to sit down at some point in time and have a conversation how we're going to go forward.
Mhm.
If we're going to continue to go forward, the change of use amount on this is $50,000 for 2 acres. So it's
So how did
tax.
How did we come up, the tax collector came up with this
The assessor
amount?
came up with that amount, right?
Our assessor came up with that amount.
Right.
Based upon criteria that the previous board
Based on
provided.
past practices, right?
Does he have any recommendations, or is it something you'd like to discuss?
He's not going to recommend anything. It's not his job to do that.
Yep.
But he just informed me that we can charge as much as $1 a cubic yard at the upper end of things, which, I mean, 2 acres, there might be 500,000 cubic yards of gravel, who knows?
Right.
So the
All right.
long and the short of it is the tax change cost is $5,000 to this taxpayer.
And this is just taking it out of current use,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Normally, my understanding of taking land out of current use, for instance, a house lot, the value is established as to the future use of that lot as a house lot. And that's what the change of use tax is based on. This isn't a house lot, this is a commercial venture. So it has to be premised upon something, and we don't have, there isn't a house going on it, it's not a residential use, so it's not in the standard format of how we establish values. It's gotta be established by something else. And the way it's normally done is by volume. And there's perilously little tax advantage to gravel tax. If you get 2 cents a yard for gravel tax, so we don't make any money on that. And I don't know, is it this board's belief that land and current use is there for a reason? It's thank God. Did the camera go off?
no.
I mean, are we trying to preserve the land in its natural state? Is that what we're doing? And or are we just deferring taxes? I mean, what would the taxes have been on that? I think it was back in the current use when Charlie Whitten was alive, so back in the 80s.
Be a few, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so you got 20 years worth of taxation on that, is that more than $5,000? Probably.
Is this something you'd like to follow up on?
No, I think it's something we need to talk about as a board.
I think you have hit an interesting subject here, and I'd be willing to work with you on it.
I mean, what's our policy? We barely have a policy on gravel pits because the states divested themselves of
Yes,
gravel.
it's a work in progress.
So,
Is your computer working?
I mean,
Yeah, I have a battery.
I guess we need to have a longer conversation
Yep.
about it.
Yep.
Not much we can do about this one.
I
Right.
didn't do the printed.
No, I think it's an interesting point.
Yep.
I'd certainly be listening to what anyone has to say.
I'll see if I can get myself on the agenda one of these weeks after the budget's over.
Well, and I know, for instance, that there are resources out there, like seminars about land use change, that can help us get smarter about the right approach to take.
And I've got I mean, just a caveat, it's important that we have gravel mining in
Yes.
order to maintain the residential development.
It's part of our road construction.
Yeah,
yes.
it's part of the fabric of a small town. But it's just trying to come up with that balance between land and current use and land.
Is there a motion on this, gentlemen?
Well, having said all that, I'll move to sign it.
And I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. You know, something that's good for the town is also good for its residents, so
Right,
that's not an oxymoron what you're talking about.
right. And it isn't, I mean, it's commercial activity, it isn't as if that cost is totally stranded on the owner. It's, you know, they're gonna get a return on that by digging.
Yep.
While you're reading, just an aside, I did ask Mr. Parsons about his revenue. And so far for the year, he's up $1,084. He's up to $32,100 versus $28,837. So at that pace, he should easily cover any increases in his budget with his revenue.
Yes, and vehicle.
Yeah.
Come on in.
You know, we've also had some litigation with regard to gravel pits, which I haven't got involved with, but let me tell you right up front, if we get into litigation on the gravel pit, they're gonna pay $1 a yard, because I don't come here for free.
Exactly.
There's no reason for us to work for nothing.
Exactly.
There she is.
Gina?
Gina, come on down, let's do Parks and Rec. It's a little bit early, but
Is there a
probably
television
have
show?
a crazy- How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. What do you got new for us?
Not too much.
I have it somewhere.
So it looks like you are requesting about $4,200, 41 and change less than in 2017.
Yeah.
Right, and that, the biggest difference there is actually all of the reduction is in dock maintenance, which is, you replaced docks last year, correct? So we don't need to replace them this year.
Nope, should be good. Full sets now.
We went up a little on lifeguards, because
Yep.
we're gonna do a little more time.
Yep.
How's that program working out? I spoke to Kevin.
Yeah,
Is there a partnership there? Or?
Ann and I, Ann McNamara and I went up and talked with them, and he's very receptive to helping us as far as training and whatever sounding board he can be to us, he will, as far as them running the program.
Yeah.
And he even said, you know, if you're in a position where you have somebody calling sick and you need a replacement, he could probably send a replacement guard down. So there would always be two.
Is that helpful?
I think it's a good thing to have. I mean, I don't know if we ran into that issue this year, but we have in the past where one was sick or couldn't make it or whatever, so that throws the whole shift off.
And what is your goal this year as far as lifeguard coverage?
What did we talk about? 4 days?
4 days, 2 lifeguards, I think.
For the whole season.
Yeah, and I thought it was 2 days in the middle of the week that we were going
Yeah.
to not have
Yeah.
coverage.
Is that reasonable?
I think so, and I think we should do better about posting when the lifeguards are there. I mean, granted, it says, you know, no lifeguard on duty, swim at your own risk, but I think if we post when, thank you, when they're actually gonna be there or scheduled to be there. You know.
And is the struggle still going to be getting people?
Yes, but with Camp Sentinel, or actually Kevin said any of the camps, that they would be willing to train, and I think that's a big issue because it's like $400 to get your lifeguard certificate and then another $250 or $300 to get your WSI, so you're already in the hole $750 for a kid to be, you know, make that up in the summer it's a pretty big investment. So they would be willing to train for free, so we would just need to find able bodies.
And how does the town do that? Other than you, who does it?
Well, I mean, we're just gonna, I think if you take
You run an ad in the spring?
We do, but I think if you take the cost part out of it,
Mhm.
you might get more kids who are receptive to doing it. And especially and if we're having, I mean, to work 11:30 to 5:30 in the middle of the day kind of precludes you from having another job where you worked in the morning and then went to another job at night or going to another job at night. So we pay pretty decent, and if they were guaranteed 4 days for the, you know, that might be more.
Should we include more money in the training line?
Well, what
I mean,
we,
should the town assume that?
well, what we did was we would pay half of the training, a quarter the first year, a quarter for the second year, so we got them for 2 years. We did that with one guard this year, Tori Crutching, turned in her certificate, the financial part of it, so we reimbursed her. And so if she comes back next year, we'll give her another quarter of that.
But it's still a $750 cost.
Right, but that's what I mean, if the camps are willing to train the lifeguards without cost.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't just take the risk. You know, we'll train you to be a lifeguard, and you're gonna work for us and try to enforce some agreement to work for a couple of years or 3 years. That's part of that training program. But, I mean, you're never gonna keep everybody, and you're always gonna lose a little bit on it.
Yeah.
Would it make it easier to fill those positions?
Well, one approach to doing that is to pay it up front, and then if they leave, then you collect it back, or collect part of it back. The problem with, say, spreading that over like 2 years is at the end of the first season they're coming back. The next season they're not coming back. Well, now there's nothing you can collect back at that point, you know, because it's seasonal employment. But while it's ideally you don't want to be paying out money to train somebody that then turns around and leaves and goes someplace else, if the cost of the training is a significant barrier to somebody taking the job, and we're not getting able-bodied, capable people to come to work for us, we certainly need to look at
That's why I think with
some alternatives.
and Kevin said Camp Sentinel does that. He said the third week of June they usually train, and the first week of June, and then he said William Lawrence does it another week. So I think we have that option with all the camps in town to say, we have somebody, but they can't make it this week. So maybe one goes to Sentinel, one goes to,
So
Belknap.
training is training.
Right.
I mean,
And
it's
they're
like-
all,
It's
and,
like Adams firefighters, whether he sends them to Concord to train, or they have one, a satellite in Ossipee, they're still learning the same skills.
right, well, the difference is that we, in the past, have asked for Red Cross certified training. The camps use YMCA. You still know how to swim, you still know how to lifeguard, it's just we also pay into the Red Cross, and he said if the camps trained them, they could train them to be a lifeguard and also teach swim lessons. That's YMCA as opposed to Red Cross. And would it be that?
Is that a stumbling block for them?
I don't think it is. I mean, I put my kid in swim lessons so she knew how to swim. I didn't care if it said Red Cross or YMCA on the certificate.
Whether they call it beginners or polywater,
Exactly.
you're still learning the crawl. aren't you?
Exactly, and I think that to me is, there's another $200 we would save by not having to be.
Is this something that you'd be willing to try this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we ought.
First of all, it might take some of the time off of you. You are a volunteer, and you live these programs, and I'm sensitive to that.
So, yeah.
Is there any possibility that there's a vendor, a camp would say, we'd run the lifeguard program for you?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that was your hope when you talked to Kevin, but I don't think they want to do that. But he's certainly willing to, like I said, train them. If we ever got in a bind where we needed a lifeguard, he would send them down. And I think as a resource, asking him, I still need to send him our manual and the schedule we had for lifeguards so he can get a better feel for it.
Are you comfortable with trying this?
Yeah.
I am if you are.
I'd still like to add $1,000 to the training budget. I mean, I just don't, I understand the hopes for the future, but I can just see the camps are open, everybody's busy, and we've got somebody who wants to get trained as a lifeguard.
I'm biased. Barry Tippett, Steve Snow, and I started at 16 being a lifeguard and swimming instructor, and I support the program 100%. So I would support if you made that as a motion.
What line are you talking about increasing?
Lifeguards, equipment, and training.
Equipment and training, so go from 800 to 1,800, which would change the bottom line to 36,761, which would still be a $3,150 reduction over last year. I'm gonna make that motion.
Go ahead, sir. Which line?
Line 6, sorry,
680.
35. No, I'm sorry, 20. Lifeguards, equipment and training,
From
from 800 to 1,800.
Yes.
Changes the bottom line to 36,761.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any further discussion?
All right, so now are we voting on the total budget with that $1,000?
Unless there's something else, you want to talk about another item. I kind of had one question. Is swimming director, swim coach, those positions are filled and all set?
Lindsay Libby, who ran the program for 2 years, will not be coming back as program director. That's another thing we talked to Kevin about. He suggested possibly using like an intern from a recreation program, get your age or whatever. So that's something where
Okay.
I got a question about the recreation areas line item. It looks like, when I look back over several years, it just bounces up and down. Okay, this year we've got 2,500 in the budget, and we've only expended to date $271. So what is recreation areas?
that covers everything. That's Davis Field, any walks and trails, because we combine some line items together. It pretty much That's the budget we do for any improvements, which we are going to do the butterfly garden, at least amend the soil, so it can either be
Milkweed, I hear, works.
planted by us, the Agriculture Commission, or the school. But at this point, go ahead.
Speak to Bruce Farr
Okay.
at the VOTEC. There's a science teacher and 4 students that next year will work on the butterfly garden, and that will include cleaning up all the rocks and debris so it can be mowed all the way back to the rec area.
Okay.
So you need to contact Bruce Farr.
Okay, because we had it to where we were gonna do it this year, pull out the stumps, because it's kind of a trip hazard at this point.
Yes, it is.
So we're at least gonna pull out the,
He has gone up there and looked at it with me. He's already done 4 projects here in town, and when they did $5,000 worth of trimming out here and pulled all the junk cars out and whatever. He has to plan a year in advance because of his new teachers and all
we
of
have
that.
a volunteer to do that work.
If there is a volunteer that wants to coordinate that with you, go see Bruce Farr as soon as possible.
Okay.
There's any, I mean, for recreational areas, I mean, you've got Central Park there,
Yeah.
you've got,
I'm only questioning
beach on Cowan.
that, you know, we have a lot of money in here this year that we haven't spent. And we're asking for the same amount next year, so
Well, that,
Part of that was
Is
that
it time? It's-
repairs were donated.
some, yes, but for the biggest thing this year, we were gonna do the butterfly garden, and then it was a no, Agriculture Commission was gonna do it. And then it was no, Tuftonboro Central School was gonna do it, and we just really had a small window of time between the end of school and beginning of school, and with the I mean, there's 4 of us on the commission, it's really a time issue of how many weekends we have available and whatever, so we just really kind of ran out of time on that, but I am trying to get it done this fall. And the money that's left, and we're gonna have the pavilion painted, should be done by the end of the month. That will overspend the docks and maintenance line, and the rest would,
It'd still be under budget though.
right, it would come out of that recreational areas. Right, still be under budget.
Another thing is, people mentioned to me that there's been several more trees blown down on the paths on the Gould property.
Okay.
Is there a vendor we can hire to clean those trails up?
I can maybe talk to somebody about that, yeah. I don't wanna,
I went up there and, you know, it's nice to have volunteers, but as soon as you have chainsaws and
Right.
and where does the brush go so it doesn't create a fire hazard? What I've done is, I've listed 6 projects in town, and Karen and Jack are working with me, and one of them was trimming the brush lower at the beach, so it's legal. But there's about 6 of those projects in town, and hey, local vendors, are any of you interested? Some of them, for example, mowing the bank on Lake Street, the mowing that needs to be done back to the borders at the transfer stations. I don't know if there's someone that we can budget some money for that. But that is one of the trails that's used almost daily, and the people who've mentioned to me are not complaining, they're just reporting it
bring it
back.
back. Also with recreational areas, we talked about having a fall cleanup at the beach. So that would come out of that line item as well. And we need to do it again in the spring.
as I said, I'm not questioning the amount in the budget, it's just that we had the same amount this year, and a lot of it's
Right.
not yet spent, so it's good to have the money available, but it also ought to
Right, I know.
be a reasonable reflection of what we expect to spend. So, yeah, it sounds to me like there's gonna be some additional costs going into that
Yeah.
line before the snow flies. Okay.
My motion's still on the table.
Yes, it is.
And is that for a total budget of 36,761, or
It
is it?
is.
Okay, well, wasn't clear if that was just to increase it, and is it seconded?
Yes, it's been made and seconded. Are we ready to move forward?
I am.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If there's a cost for the trail, we can amend this at a later time.
Okay. I do have one, if you have a minute. I met with Shane Folsom about the beach improvement.
Mhm.
And we talked about adding sand, but the rock wall that's there now is pretty low. And we can add sand to it, but it's gonna wash out like it has in the past. He questioned whether or not we would be interested in fixing that, making it higher possibly, and adding, because now you have to like step over it to get down to the water, and adding access points to the beach to help with the washout, the erosion, because we can add sand to it and it's still gonna, if it's not addressed, there's no sense adding sand to it, because it's just gonna.
It's illegal to add sand on the water side of the Perch Beach.
Right, we're talking about the perch part, but it's now washing down to the water side.
So we're adding sand.
Yeah, pretty much.
And hasn't the Conservation Commission agreed to work in this whole area here? Because Mike Phelps, for example, said he's located 2 drains
Yeah.
that are meant to take the water, instead of heading toward the lake,
Right.
put it under the road back into the estuary.
Well, that's-
Legally and safely.
And what I talked to him about was doing the permit, helping us with the permit process, because he said there's a wetland and a shoreline permit. He said the shoreline permit, adding, re-leveling out the grassy area by the pavilion, he said we could probably do that without a problem. He said that probably wouldn't be an issue with the state at all, because you're fixing, and if we were to add a rain garden that helped with erosion and water ending up in the lake, he said the state would be glad to see that. The shoreline one with adding sand is probably gonna be an issue anyway, but especially with that wall not being, it's not really doing anything now. I mean, there's a silt barrier there, the felt, you can see it in places, and you can clearly see that the clean sand is washed down onto the beach. But it's just a matter of cost. How much money do we think we want to put into this? The design of the project, and then the whole project.
As I understand it, part of where Steve was coming from is, if you can get the water, instead of moving this direction, move this direction.
Right, and that
It
would
mi- it
be
mitigates.
raising that wall, because it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty low. There's a swale and the grass that catches some of the water, but it's the rock, and, you know.
Well, I also asked to maintain, what does it need for a tar there? Is there a special impervious tar or stuff like this? These are all maintenance costs. Again, Steve seemed to, and his committee seemed to be willing to work with you on that.
Right, and like I said, and Steve's the one that recommended talking to,
He also speaks DES, so.
right, and that's, I mean,
So what, is there a cost involved in this, doing this, and what is that?
the design, I need to get him some more information, and then he will get us a cost for the design. That's kind of been a hold up with the whole process, because we need to know what it costs before we move forward. But I guess, do we want to have him do a design that fixes that? Or
How much higher are we talking about the wall being?
he said you would need to add access points,
Mhm.
whether
So
it
that's an
be
issue.
stairs or a ramp or however, and he said it may be 2 access points. He needs more information before he can really give me an idea on price of the design, so.
Information, like what?
The original, he'd like to see it if we can get it, the original permit that was filed to do the beach, the
Okay.
tax map, all that kind of stuff. So I have some homework to do, but
I'm sure that's on file.
Mhm. And there were actually 2 permits, I think, when the state moved the road,
Right.
and then when the town put the beach in,
Right.
and then there was probably another one for when the pavilion was put in.
I have a question. Who is the he you're referring to?
Shane Folsom, Folsom Design Group.
Shane Folsom?
Mhm.
Well, anything else for us? Thank you for what you and your committee does, it's appreciated. Thank you.
Hey, we done?
Thanks, Jan.
Yep.
Back to signatures.
Andy's out here.
Okay.
Come on now.
Good morning.
Morning.
See your beard's coming right along?
Yeah, it's driving me nuts.
It's for a good cause. Go ahead,
I think
sir.
it's gonna be a little, trimmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, got a take back schedule for the 28th. Our cruiser, the newest one, is all finally finished and set up. So now we have the, we gotta get the video for the truck put in now. That we got earlier this year. We were waiting for the cruiser to be done first. And, the radar trailer was looked at. They think it's the charger, but they can't do anything till they get batteries. So I got the batteries, so now they gotta come back and
So
look at
it's
the
solar
charger.
charger?
No, there's actually a plug-in charger. So when you, the solar charger is supposed to just keep the batteries at a certain level, but not really bring them back up. So, and it had to be something because it was a brand new batteries. So the batteries were prorated, cost us like $70, I think. But there's something else was going on, obviously. So the charger is doing something to the batteries, and I want to put the new batteries in and have them get ruined too. So those are the big things going on there. I've got IACP in Philadelphia this week, and starts the 20th.
Would you send Karen a note of where you're gonna be and
Yeah.
who's in charge, just so it's a
Jamie
matter
will
of
be in
record?
charge, and
Just
I'll
so-
be available.
Would you put that in
Yeah,
writing?
I will put that in writing. Okay. Was working on some of that stuff, and obviously we had a power outage, and somebody came in earlier too, so that's why I was not available when asked somebody to come in for
What are you taking for courses, anything?
on cameras, some legal updates. Those are the ones that so far I've
Have you been before?
one time in 2006.
I think you'll thoroughly
Boston.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
Anyone from New England going through the 6 vice presidents?
no.
New Hampshire's had a few over the years, so.
Yeah, Charlie Reynolds, Dave
I'll
Balchick.
check.
I'm not sure if anybody else, but those are the two that come to my mind. Could be. So yeah, we're leaving Friday for that, and then I'll be back Wednesday. And then I've got somebody going to training later this week. Carl's going to a course, should be a very good course on evidence collection and processing, something that I think would be helpful for him. And we're just trying, we would spend a lot of time shuffling cars and working on that and getting stuff back and forth, because getting them ready. Went down to pick it up and had to get some stuff done up on it still.
Who was the vendor that did it?
2A down in Newington. Well, they have a place in Hudson and they have one in Guilford, but they do other vehicle stuff in Newington.
We had the lady from Whitehorse in.
Yes.
Do you have any interaction with them?
I've met with them when we did the meeting up in Sandwich, the countywide meeting. Had some meeting there, and also I haven't been able to attend as much, but I was the president up until last September of the Kingsworth Youth Center, and they come in once a week to work with the kids in the youth center. So I'm familiar with them. I hear they have a pretty good intensive outpatient, and they're working on trying to get inpatient, a residential type.
But they don't have any, there's no part of their operation that's inclusive of the criminal justice?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, obviously, I hear good things about their program.
Yeah.
They've trained. I know they've done some training for recovery coaches, but I don't know that.
But no mandatory placements or any of that sort of thing?
Not that I'm aware of, but knock on wood, we haven't had a whole lot either here, so I can check on that, see what other places.
It says there's four this summer, I'm talking about.
4 last year, 3 this summer.
Sorry.
Forward?
No.
No,
Oh.
these are
Residents going there.
Right.
Yeah.
people going for.
Yeah, no, I've
contact.
known people have gone there. I know of
Clients.
one.
Clients.
I know of one in town that's gone there. I thought you meant Forward.
Well, I did, but I was sort of unclear as to whether or not there was any sort of.
No, I do know of one that has told me, I mean, obviously it's private and I wouldn't intrude, but someone did offer that up, that they were going there after they had a relapse and were doing well. So, I hear good things about the program, that, we have, there's Whitehorse, there's Mount Washington Sports Recovery, there's another group trying to start something up towards Conway area, I believe, but and the only other thing we've got is, what's it called, Friendship House, whatever, up in Bethlehem for the tri-county. That's about it we've got for the area. And demand is obviously for bed spaces beyond what the capacity, 3 beds, but they're working on, so I've heard, a lot of people have done the intensive outpatient there. Well, the other program we got is at the county jail, but
Right.
that's incarceration. We did hear last week, the county attorney said she felt that the drug court would be up and running by the end of the year. A couple of us kind of said, that's not a lot of time, and haven't heard a whole lot about it, but you probably know more than me.
All I know is the staffing issues are abysmal in the judicial system. So
Yeah, so I
don't know
am
who they're gonna put
surprised.
there.
Yeah, I don't think, I think there's gonna be capacity issues with that and with probation parole, and
Right.
one of the things that also came out last week's chiefs meeting, county chiefs meeting, was the county attorney was going over, those who aren't aware, City of Manchester domestic violence cases that kind of made the news because they charged people, never followed up, people just blew it off. People wanted cases to go forward, they weren't brought forward. The Attorney General's office said that's wrong, and also said to the county attorney in Hillsborough County, you're responsible. So we're working with the county attorney's office to figure out how that's gonna work. One of the things that she talked about is a possible solution for how that accountability would work, is if she actually had somebody prosecuting in the courts, at least domestic violence cases, and
Right.
so there'd be some consistency, and she'd be assured that she was actually knowing what was happening as opposed to otherwise. But
Police prosecutors handling it
in having
or not.
10 or so different police prosecutors handling it 10 different ways, trying to get some consistency. She's doing some training, but that's, I don't know when that would come to fruition, if at all, but that would be something that would, I believe a lot, but it would be a little bit of something that takes some caseload away, but that's,
So you currently prosecute domestic violence?
yes. And, I mean, knock on wood, we don't get as many as some other towns in the county do.
We'll
But,
get along here.
most of the time.
Most of the time, right?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
What's the status of the signs that need to be erected by the state?
I haven't heard anything. I will check with that again.
Is there anyone we can talk to without annoying them?
No, I'll talk to them.
Is there anything we can do to help? I mean, I know it's the end of the season, but
Yeah, I'll check with them again.
Sodom Road Bridge,
With the signs put up.
the signs are put up.
I've heard that there's a logging truck that's gone over, so I know one of the officers went out to try and find it, sat out there to see if anything happened, as far as they go by again, and he was gonna go try and track them down at the logging site beyond, to tell them, don't do that anymore, or else.
I'm just trying to be very careful here. We don't, as a selectman, we don't need to pass a vote or have a public hearing. The state has asked us to post it at 15 tons. Is there anything in the law that you're aware of?
I'm thinking there should be a notice, some sort of public notice put out, maybe in the paper or something. I'll check on that. I'll look
After
at
you
that.
come back, can you research that?
Yeah, I'll look at the road, the manual from NHMA on roads. But I'm pretty sure, but other than that, I mean, as a town road, the selectmen have control over regulations for it.
I want to do it right, but also want to make sure that one of your officers doesn't want to have a guy wait and come to find out we didn't post it
Yeah.
technically right or whatnot. And I turn to you because
Yeah, I'll check on that. I know I've seen that sometimes. It's been you see like a legal notice in the paper, if you will. Maybe that's.
And the other thought I have is a former truck driver is, and I don't know if we're responsible for this, but what happens when a legal truck driver gets and puts his brakes on? How does he turn around? I mean,
I believe there's warning signs though.
At the ends of the road.
Yeah.
yes, they are. If
And
they're
I think, the
They're
guys
satisfactory.
logging, they had to have seen it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Back up.
it sounds like I'm trying to baby these people. I'm not.
No.
Come on now. I'm thinking. The parking on the dock issues and the town ordinances, that's still
I
a
haven't
work in
worked on that
progress.
lately, but I will be,
Okay.
so we can have that for the end of the year, so we can get that ready for anything for town meeting.
I think that before the CIP committee, you mentioned about some changes as far as computer options that were going to save money.
Well, one of the projects in CIP was about $19,000 to transfer our old data over to send it from our system up to the county system, have it put on there. In talking with TriTech, IMC, Zerk, or whatever name they want to roll under, they are, they have a cheaper option, which basically is almost doing what we're doing now, keeping it running, but we're gonna take it off the server and put it on a separate computer, if you will. But it's almost what we're doing, it's like $100 they charge to do it, so $19,100, which we're gonna do. Because we have to update our server, and that was one of the questions I had before. Tom,
How do we save our data?
yeah, how do we save our data? And they're saying, oh, you can just put it on a CD and for $100 you can, he says a lot of places, once they do it, after a while, they just kind of go, we don't even need that anymore, that data. I'm kind of surprised, but anyway, that's, so that'll save a lot of money and get it done without as much issues.
And this is all historical data, right?
It's anything prior to May of 2016.
So the further down the road you get from that,
Yeah, and we have printed
less-
copies of the stuff that we
Yeah.
have to keep forever, obviously.
the less frequently you're going to have to refer back to it, right?
Right, that's
So,
the idea.
yeah.
And the stuff we have to keep forever, obviously, fatal accidents, arrests, they'll be in folders anyways, hard copy. So eventually with time, it'll be, that's what they say happens. That's what Mark Baranowski from TriTech says happens in a lot of places. They get it, they do it, they have it if they want to, and after a while, they just realize it's not being used. What's going on with the system that we go now through the county, Freedom has gone to it, Madison has gone to it as far as from the offices, not in the cars. But Madison is looking to get MDTs in the cars like us so they can do it. OSPI has got them, they're just not all the networking set up yet for them and all the set up. In fact, they're doing the training today, OSPI is, on the MDTs, so it'll be more networked for everybody.
I have a concern.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to my police officers that are out there, and they're in their mobile office, I want as much information available to them so they can, first of all, make a good decision and use discretion, but also it can be safe.
Mhm.
And I get frustrated when I hear war stories that things don't work and gee, we didn't have that and that was on a piece of paper someplace. But and it's not a criticism when you or your officers are busy and come to find out there was a warrant out for someone, or and I don't know what the particulars, or they had a decision someplace and through no fault of your own, you're not able to treat this citizen and protect this citizen. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Am I overanalyzing?
Well, I think that's part of the advantage of having a system, is that we'll get that information. Dispatch can send our messages direct without having to go over the radio.
It's 1/10 the energy when you
It's,
don't, when you text.
The only thing we have a little glitch with is obviously cellular coverage,
Yes.
dropping. But it seems to work pretty good for that. And one of the other things going on is this FirstNet, which the executive committee has recommended the governor opt out of FirstNet. FirstNet is going to be a cellular network that will supposed to be dedicated just for first responders. Our cell phones will not be on the same networks as everybody else's cell phones. If FirstNet, that's FirstNet, and then even if we opt out, we'll be separate from.
And the reason for having cell phones on a safety network is so like at Columbine, the circuits don't get jammed, right?
Yeah, or Sandwich Fair, the circuits jam up because so many people are just dialing anyways.
Yes.
So then that's supposed to be, I think it's December is when the governor has to make the final yes or no, we're gonna opt in or opt out. One company, the company that got the FirstNet federally is AT&T, and they have to cover 60% of the state within, I think it's 6 months or 9 months. But it's unclear.
60% of real estate or 60% of the population?
That's a good question. If the 60% of the population, they've already got it, and they probably don't have to do anything, and we're still not gonna have good coverage. That's part of why I think the executive committee wanted to go with Rivada. Rivada has promised coverage almost everywhere pretty quick. They've partnered with US Cellular, but they also have some other options, and their model is kind of neat because they're going to basically, the money they're getting from the federal government is for towers and infrastructure on the provider end, not on our end. Rivada has promised that, so they'll still charge us a fee like we're getting charged now. Rivada has promised it'll be like $1 a month if they were the ones to get picked. Because they can't do it for free, but they can charge a little bit. They're gonna make their money on selling spare bandwidth, kind of their technical thing. And then in late kind of ruling in, Verizon has offered to give our devices preemption, but it would still be on their networks, which is not being considered by the state, and it wouldn't be clear if it could work with FirstNet. Eventually, FirstNet will do data such as videos, you can live stream videos. It has a lot of promise, and it's supposed to eliminate a lot of these dead spots. FirstNet or the alternate if they opt out. So that has to go with our mobile data terminals now to get coverage, is where that came from. My discussion went along with that.
Talk about computers. Does this new computer allow you to do your FBI statistics and your criminal justice statistics?
Yes.
And does the current computer allow you to do that, or
Yes.
have those been done for this year?
I've gone up to June. I had to turn them in September.
That was last year's thing?
Yes, I had to do last year's.
So you ever get a copy of those?
I can get that for you.
If-
Well, I'd have to do the UCR. The NIBRS is like this computer code thing that the computer reads and can tell you. If I looked at it, I couldn't tell you what it says. But yes, I can do the UCR report, not the NIBRS report.
Shift gears, budget.
Turned it in.
Okay, and we have a target date, Karen, for him to come in?
He's gonna be away, we're gonna try to do it at the next work session, but
Next work
we'll
session.
just schedule it after.
Okay, everything went well.
Because he'll be away then.
At one of our meetings several months ago, you were talking about coming up with a list of a dozen or so community relation programs for you and your department.
Yeah.
How's that list coming?
I thought I gave them to you about that time in that meeting, kind of verbally, like the program. Well, we got-
Look, why don't I review my notes?
Yeah, I'll double check, but I kind of gave a list of what we had been doing, so. And
It's where I'm on.
I'm wearing one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna be wearing one, well, yeah, when I come back, I'll probably be wearing another.
Last Friday, we were approached about a modular home needing storage for a year or two. Did you get that straightened out? They wanted to use the parking lot at 19 Mile Bay
Yeah,
just to park it while they waited for something to happen at the construction site. And I said that they needed to talk to your department.
yeah, somebody did approach us about it. I mean, yeah, this time of year, it's not an issue, so.
Right.
It's, I mean, if it's sat there till December, that'd be another story, but if it's just there for, like you say, a couple of days to move it and whatever, I'm sure they don't want to leave it either, so.
Is this the 19 Mile Bay parking area?
Right.
Yeah,
I can remember he got involved a while ago when a modular home sat there for
yes.
a period of time,
That's what this was about.
and he had to go find the owner.
Yeah. I think, I'll be honest, I'm gonna buy it, but I'll check on it today to make sure it's all squared away, but I'm pretty sure
I just didn't.
shouldn't be an issue this time of year, typically.
The only thing I just remember seeing down there over the weekend that looked like it might have been sitting for a while is a trailer with some logs on it. Parked back against the backside, like a trailer you'd use to haul an excavator or something.
Yeah.
A ramp trailer. But other than that, I don't think there's much.
Anything else for the chief? Have a safe trip. I think you'll have a good time at IECP. Is there a good contingent from New Hampshire going?
I think so.
Great.
I don't know where everybody's going, but I know some of them.
But travel safe, sir. okay?
I've got Ted Smith from Lincoln, he's the North Atlantic Regional Director for SACOP, so he's trying to get me to stuff.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Chief.
day. Thank you
Thanks.
for what you do. We'll be back to the Reds folder. Folsom Design Group. We need a motion to expend $300 for the septic system design application. It's payable to the state of New Hampshire for the library's septic.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. We have your electricity supply contract. We signed. This is a letter dated October 16th to William Watson to acknowledge that the town of Tufton Borough has complied with the recommendation to post Tufton Borough Bridge number such and such Sodom Road over Melvin River to a weight limit of 15 tons. Next is map 16-1-7 on Sodom Road, intent to cut. You folks read it?
Move approval?
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Yeah, they're in there cutting already.
Next is for map 41-2-14, -4-15. Karen, aren't our maps and lots only 3?
Nope, sometimes it is, the lot is a 2-digit number sometimes.
Oh, it's subdivided, okay. This is owner that formerly had a half interest in this property and received half of the standard veterans credit. We now have a warranty deed stating that the gentleman has 100% interest. DRA suggests that we have him reapply for the full credit to have a clear paper trail. The recommendation is that we award Mr. Dudley the full standard veteran credit in the amount of $500 effective with the 2018 tax year.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Right here is the paperwork.
Oh, okay.
This is the only page, Karen, the yellow page.
Oh, I didn't put a signature on it, or did I? Sorry about that. That is just on the spot.
Thank you for your research on that.
You're welcome.
Continued business, valuation of utility poles.
I thought we had decided to go with consensus.
Yep. If I remember correctly, we went with the lower of 2 rates. Correct?
No,
With a higher of 2 rates.
higher of 2 rates.
We
And
did?
We discussed it and we said we'd come back and revisit it, but
And that was San Souci's recommendation.
yes.
And that's what the MS
One.
one that was filled out reflects.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Just for your review, I went through my folder and found the decision, but I also found the assessments that show you how far off the towns in New Hampshire were versus the DRA. I also have a copy of
So less than half.
yes. It was- I also have a copy of, as you are well aware of, HEB 325 was proposed last winter. I think you all got a copy of that.
Did that pass?
It's my understanding it's still pending for the legislature, aren't they out?
It was retained, so I think it comes back.
Wasn't it tabled or something like
Yeah, it
that?
was retained, which is tabling.
Is there something we want one of our representatives to pay attention to?
I would say so, absolutely. You know, it's, the real question is, in my mind, who should bear that cost? Should it be the landowners or should it be the people that are ratepayers? Because if the tax goes down, that reduces an expense for the utilities, which in theory gets passed along to the ratepayer. But it increases the share of the burden that accrues to the landowner. So, given, in my view, is given that the benefit of the utility flows to the user, that's where the cost ought to be.
Right, and I don't think that there's, I mean, it's obvious with our electrical contract there that we talked about earlier, we don't have any control over the cost. So this, canard that the utility companies are putting up that says that we're categorically trying to raise people's property taxes by increasing utility rates. If they let us negotiate the price of electricity, maybe we'd be a little more amenable to, but it's always a one-sided deal. So perhaps they need to pay taxes on the poles that are commensurate to the value.
Yes.
And we have these substations and all the rest of that stuff here in Tuftonboro that has commercial value, and they're certainly treating it like
In
commercial
Tuftonboro, it's
property.
$14 million worth
I
there.
mean, when the co-op or the PSNH go out to borrow money, they do, they catalog all the poles, all the wire, as, what's their capital
Buildings,
value.
Sure.
And so they're treating it as capital goods, so we should treat it as capital goods. And it's like the gravel that I spoke about earlier. They have an opportunity to recoup some from the taxable property. The property owner who lives in the house doesn't have that opportunity. They're just paying taxes on living there.
What I did is, I have a copy of, obviously, correspondence. I was on the negotiating team, and I highlighted 3 sentences for the record. And as the result of the court case, which Sansuzi and Bullet won, quote, "The court found that there was ample evidence in the record to support the findings that Teagarden, Lagassa, and Dickman for the state were not credible. And the court went to great length in a number of decisions to list out the flaws in the testimony of each that will well make it hard for any company to continue to use them as a, quote, expert. The court did note in each decision that for the last several decades, the problem of valuing utility property has needed a legislative fix. Indeed, the better course would have been to urge the prohibition of the use of DRA's numbers in the local property tax as was proposed during the prior 2 legislative sessions. Fortunately, Tuftonboro has continued to be part of a cohesive unit. Just an editorial comment, I found out a little factoid that our electric vendor has 900 customers it has to buy power from. That's pretty substantial for this part of New Hampshire. Anything else on valuation of utility poles? Okay. Go through correspondence here. This is under other. Do we want to do it now, the CIP submissions, or?
I'm sure that's fine.
Okay. This is your work here.
Yep.
2 things to discuss: Tuftonboro Neck Road Bridge and Library Septic System, and Sodom Road Bridge. Which one would you like to take first?
Well, I'll be happy to speak to all of them.
Yes.
These are projects that we have submitted to go in the CIP plan. And Tuftonboro Neck Bridge and Sodom Road Bridge were both in CIP from previous years. And what we did is we updated our submission both in terms of estimated cost and in terms of timing based upon the current feedback we got on the state bridge aid program. So that the Tufton Neck Road Bridge, the estimated total cost is now $905,000, and it would be in the year 2026, which is coincides with their with the timing on their schedule. And the Sodom Road Bridge cost would be $525,000, and that would be on the 2024 schedule. Obviously, particularly as it relates to Sodom Road, there are some alternatives and unknowns out there at this point. I think we're getting some pricing on a repair to that bridge that would restore capacity in the interim. That's not reflected in what CIP is working on right now, because there's really no know. But at some point, we'll have a price from, I think HEB is that who's giving us a proposal on that. The other submission that's gone in is for a replacement septic system over at the library, and we submitted that with a placeholder of $30,000. Once the design is done, we will have something we can then get pricing on and adjust. And my hope is that it will be significantly less than $30,000. We got something as a placeholder in there at this point.
That would be for next year, correct?
That would, yes, that is an item that we will.
And it's my understanding that that would be for no matter what the project for the library is, because the bathrooms in the new phase are in the same place, and they won't change if the project doesn't go forward, correct?
And as we discussed before, anything that we do in terms of a new septic system, given that there's consideration of expansion of the library, ought to be in a location and of a size that would support the expanded library. My view is the difference in cost between putting a little larger system in and one that's just adequate for what they have today is not going to be huge. The mobilization and
Well, it's designed by bathroom side.
right.
It's not like we're adding
So-
4 bathrooms.
No, commercial buildings are designed by capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you've got a 100-room meeting room, that's gonna have 100 people capacity.
Yeah.
Versus whatever we have currently, if it's a 40.
32 at the fire station.
Yeah, 32, whatever. So it's premised on capacity.
So, and I think the other piece to what you said is this is something that needs to happen regardless of what else is going on with the library. It makes sense to put in a system that would accommodate an expansion, but even if there's no expansion going on next year, we still need a new septic system because what we have there has failed. We talked earlier about updates on existing projects, Union Wharf and at Lake Road, and so I've got some figures that we can adjust from what was in there before. The only other thing is we talked about putting more road construction money in for 2018, and so it would be helpful to at least have a target in mind that we can crank into the CIP thinking on that. And again, to briefly take a trip into history, used to be that the reconstruction money was a line item in the operating budget, and the amount going back some period of time was $50,000 a year. And then the other $185,000 for repaving was an article on the warrant. And 4 years ago, whatever it was, it all got combined in an article on the warrant. And we've had some discussion about separating that back out and or maybe just plus upping the amount in the article on the warrant. So some understanding of where we want to go with that would be helpful in terms of CIP moving forward with their processes.
At the last meeting that Jim was here, I asked him to get written estimates of what it would cost to grind, repave, replace any culverts, and do the edges, have Carol do the edges for Federal Corner Road, Brown Road, North Line Road. And I understand he's working on that according to his paperwork. Also, there is a new process out that they did 5 miles in Ossipee over that involves rubber or matting or something like this. And could he get a price for that to do Shirley Way? And it's my understanding that he's working on those things. I asked if he could be here today to make a presentation, and it didn't work out, so it's a work in progress.
So do you want to put a placeholder for a plus up in at this point?
Well, I think it makes sense to break the maintenance out of paving.
Well, it's not
Because-
maintenance, it's
For
reconstruction.
reconstruction. Because if you don't pave, I mean, if the logic to put it all together was now that people get to vote up or down annually on all of it. Well, if you don't pave, you're gonna have to do more work to make sure you keep the road together until you do pass a paving bill. So one would, I mean, it just doesn't seem reasonable to put the reconstruction money all in the warrant article.
I am a strong supporter of the $50,000 going back where it was before. The reason it got changed, yes, there were some philosophical differences, but it was to put an end to just the unpleasantness. I support you, Chip, that it should be back in.
So does that change the CIP at all? I mean, how's that work?
Well, that's capital expense regardless of whether it's
In the budget or?
in the budget or in a separate article, so, but, so the real question is,
Oh,
if are we talking about taking the 50,000 that was part of that 235, putting it in the budget, and keeping the paving at 235, which increases the paving budget by 50,000, or are we talking about something different?
Well, I would be in agreement with taking the 50,000 out and putting it in the operating budget.
Right.
And repair or whatever. Then we need to have a separate conversation about paving. I mean, for years it was at 180,000.
What I have done is,
Regardless of cost.
I have a folder on everything. I had a conversation with Jim. It's obvious to me that Federal Corner Road is going downhill the fastest. And of the 4 roads I mentioned, has the most traffic. And his talk about, after about 5 to 8 years, the cost to repair just become exponential. I'm willing to work with you people and Jim on what order of those roads do we want to do. I have a little bit I've changed a little bit. Why don't we do a road and do the entire road, like Durgan Road? We do it half and half, and it ends up taking 4 years to get some of these projects done. I think the population in town would like to see us do about 5 miles of roads a year, as long as it is millions and millions of dollars. And I'm willing to re-examine that warrant article separately. I'm anticipating that I will support more than $150,000 for just tarring roads this year. How much that is, I'm not sure yet, but I'm open to re-examining.
Well, if we take the reconstruction money out and put it in the operating budget, then we could ask Carol, what's your mileage rate
Yes,
for 2018?
yes.
And figure out how many miles you want to pave, and that's what
About
it
5
costs.
years ago, he said we should be doing 5 miles of town road a year. And we've come nowhere close to that in the last 5 years. And, we're building fire stations and doing other things, so I understand it's a swap.
We haven't reviewed the road agent's budget yet, so I think
No, we haven't.
We all set on Selectmen CIP submissions? Why don't you, I'll give you my copy here, and feel free to work those figures up and represent, like you always do, as at the Board of Selectmen. You've always been reasonable that way. Next, let's do correspondence. This is for the Tufton Road Selectmen from the Libby Museum.
right,
Nothing really for us, is it?
Well, it's,
it is.
it is, I think it's significant, all right? This has to do with a lot that's right at the Wolfboro town line on 109 on Mirror Lake. And it was, it's a 1.82 acre parcel with 390 feet of shore frontage. And it's, it was left by Dr. Henry F. Libby to the town of Tuftonboro. And this particular letter is a proposal that that land be turned into something other than an unused lot. Proposal is for proper establishment of the Libby Park in the town of Tuftonboro, from the point where the path currently ends in the town of Wolfboro. So they're talking about extending the path, clearing brush and fallen trees to allow clear view of the Ospey Mountains, and adding picnic table and benches and signage related to the use for recreational purposes, and a small sign with information about the Ospey Mountains on it. So they are in the process of preparing an estimate for what these will cost, and are looking to have it to us this month so that we can consider it as part of the budget in 2018. And this particular item falls in line with, I guess, my previously stated opinion that the town owns property, and we own it for a reason. Conservation, and not just because somebody defaulted on their taxes, but the piece of property that we actually own, we ought to make it more available to residents and others to use for recreational purposes. At the very least, some sort of signage that identifies it as a town property is appropriate. Development of trails, picnic table, whatever, as appropriate. Some small parking areas, perhaps. Work is going on right now in the Conservation Commission to develop a trail into the Great Meadow with appropriate access points and signage and that sort of thing. I mean, to my way of thinking, this falls right in line with that. One thing that we do need to give consideration to as it relates to, and all the stuff that I hear talked about in here is not large dollar items, but if we're gonna have it more available to people, where are they gonna park? Are we gonna include a provision with some of that area? And I think we should for some parking. And, you know, maybe it's just widening it out so you're parking parallel to the road along there. Maybe it's something different, but, you know, we have, for instance, the Gold property, Central Park, that has a nice area for people to park, trail network and all that sort of thing. And I certainly would like to see us with other properties that have been identified as just, it belongs to the town, and we want it to belong to the town. Let's have it available for people to.
Do you have similar thoughts? I know
Yeah,
you do.
I mean, I have to sort of couch them in full disclosure that my sister's the current curator at the museum. But, I mean, that's a property that I think if you read the Dr. Libby Trust documents, that's exactly what he wanted to have happen. I think parking at the Libby Museum is what her current understanding was going to be, because it's a nature trail that they've got at the Libby, and this would just be a continuation of that. I know that she also mentioned signage, that this wasn't a boat launch, this was, you can launch your boat up at the Mirror Lake boat launch and paddle down to the Libby Park, and
I have on the agenda for tonight for the Conservation Commission that the Libby Museum proposal. Can I take this with them?
yeah, I know she's talked to Steve
Yeah.
about that.
And what I've done is I put parking question mark, and I'll represent that the Board of Selectmen are supportive.
And this might be the Parks and Rec.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. That's it. I think it's a win-win for everybody. All set on that?
Yeah.
Well stated, Bill. This is to the Select Board. The Fire Department is looking to put out a bid on a 12 by 24 shelter logic structure located behind the Melvin Village Fire Station. The shelter is no longer used or needed since the central station has been built. The shelter was used to help mitigate the department's space needs prior to the new building. The structure is showing its age and it should be sold before it deteriorates more. It is recommended that the winning bid include a disassembly and removal by the bidder. Is it okay to put it out to bid?
Sure.
Yeah,
Do we need a vote?
I think we just need to vote to accept the money.
Karen, can you make this happen?
Yes.
Okay. This is from, it's a hazardous mitigation grant application program. This is for review and submission by us.
Isn't that the same one that HEB has been
Yes,
doing?
yes. There's one for each bridge.
And does it require a signature? I don't know if it does.
He put those submissions in for the bridges and they deemed us eligible for funding. And it seems as if there's some additional paperwork that needs to be done. I think it's a few months from now. Should be in the email.
So my understanding is that the application has to be submitted, completed and submitted by April 9th of 2018. Is that right, Karen?
That's what I
So we don't have to finish this thing today.
Oh gosh, no. Just, I guess I was thinking, to be honest with you, is this something that you'd like HEB to come in and sit with you folks about in between?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, they put the initial thing in and then,
Yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Okay, I'll have them
Yeah.
come. I'll ask them to.
Excuse me.
Who will work on this?
Karen.
Okay.
It was like April 2019.
18.
Was
Oh.
it 18?
Yeah, it was next
Yes.
year, yeah.
This is USDA's Community Facilities Program is open. The application deadlines are coming up. One of the contacts in New Hampshire is at Wetco and Getchell in Wolfboro. Did you folks read this? Some of the community program projects across New Hampshire they helped fund was to replace computer equipment and software in Littleton and Lancaster. Another one was to replace towers in Hanover and Littleton that enables communities, fire, police, towns, better radio communications. Another one was to install solar arrays capable of producing electricity. I know we had a meeting a year ago with some people interested maybe doing something up at the transfer station. And then the town of Thornton purchased TriTech IMC software and in-house server that will allow the police department in Thornton to be connected directly to the Plymouth dispatch site. Has anyone reviewed this?
I took I looked over it quickly. This is it's one of a number of potential sources of funds to do a variety of projects. So the question is, if we're thinking of projects that would fit with this, who's going to do the legwork to investigate it? Who's going to do the grant writing to get the project in front of the decision makers?
I'll make a phone call to Ann and meet with her and get some preliminary information. No problem.
Yeah.
Now that Time Warner is off the table.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I volunteer to do that?
Yeah.
Sure, that's
Okay.
great. But it's, and I think we talked about it before, one of the challenges to small towns like ours are when it comes to grant funding, we are at a disadvantage against larger communities because we don't have an employee that is a grant writer on staff or has that capability or past involvement. I mean, there are opportunities out there, and one of the ways you get grants is you spend a lot of time writing grants, and so you
Get good at it.
you get good at it. You know, sometimes you get a grant awarded, sometimes you don't. But just a fact of life.
Okay, on that. Next is New Hampshire Association of Assessing Officials draft ballot. Is there anything you want to do or ask Rod to do it for us?
Yeah, I just, I have no idea what those people do. So,
Do you recognize any of the names in your world
I
travels?
thought I recognized one, but I know she died.
But you thought she died, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
maybe she's back from the dead. It's just,
I have no problem passing it on to Rod.
yeah, maybe he can explain
Yeah.
it to us.
Okay, just,
But there's only one candidate from each county. I mean, it's sort of like voting for boards of directors and corporations. You don't get a lot of choices.
We have,
Co-op, which is no longer a co-op.
yeah, we have other correspondence that we lump together that is just, you know,
Lumps.
news and stuff like that, no action needed.
Excuse me, was there a letter in there? There should be a couple more things in there. Was there a letter in there about someone wanting to put a plaque
Right on the tree,
and then
Greenwood,
it's just a one sheeter, it might have got stuck somewhere.
Ms. Greenwood, looking down.
I am,
Right.
greetings, I'm writing to request permission to place a plaque by the Christmas tree on the side of the townhouse to designate why the tree was planted there 24 years ago. It was planted in memory of my husband, Lionel Bud Greenwood. I'm not sure if my daughter-in-law, Lisa Greenwood, got permission at the time or not. I would appreciate your attention to and thank you for considering this matter. Sincerely, Lindy Greenwood.
So,
What I'll do is I'll check and see if the tree's out there and if
Yeah, see if you
there's
can
we
look
put
back at the
a
minutes.
plaque on it or something like that.
Well, it'd be nice to have the minutes to reflect,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, maybe
Sure.
not, but who knows?
That was 24 years ago. Okay,
Not that long.
yeah, you remember that, don't you? And did you say there was something else?
The USDA roundtable questionnaire, is that there? I just need to, you folks to, then I can submit it electronically.
What, I don't,
That was for that.
LRP, was it LRPC, wasn't it?
Oh,
Roundtable
yes.
questionnaire, it was in there someplace.
Yeah,
Right, so what she's asking for in this letter is permission
Yeah,
to place a
permission.
plaque.
correct.
So I move that we provide, that we give her permission to place the plaque at this tree on the side of the townhouse. I can't
is the
picture,
tree there?
well, I don't know, but she may be on the side of the town offices. So,
I'll go.
It's a Christmas tree.
yeah,
Maybe we should just look for the decorations.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a large tree right out there, maybe that's what she
Oh, I thought it
was.
said townhouse, no, it doesn't
It
say.
says townhouse, but a
Oh,
lot of
might
times
have been a
people,
mistake,
a
yeah.
lot of times people get confused, so
I see,
I don't recall a tree next to the townhouse.
okay.
So,
I'll
Get your binoculars too.
Yeah, there's some pine trees.
Yeah.
I know they're
I'll
there.
check it out for you
Yeah.
next.
all right.
Okay.
Okay. I don't see that paperwork you asked me to look for.
Okay. Is that motion on
Whoop, which,
the table now, so just,
Yeah, the tree's on the table.
the trees on the table?
So you want to table that motion until you
Sure.
investigate? All right.
This is, please fill out the survey for the upcoming roundtable topics. I'll be going to that meeting in another week. What roundtable topics are of most interest to you?
So you need to fill that out. If you go in.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you guys want filled out? I like to talk about all of them. You know, the big one was the electricity savings. Check them off.
Well, one thing that I see on here is that we've had ongoing conversations on is disposal of unused medicines. We've talked about having a drop box here and there's some issues and that sort of thing. And it seems to me that maybe that's something that on a larger basis, we can come up with with a way of dealing with, you know, within the current restriction of the law, but that makes it easier for people to get rid of stuff that they're no longer using.
Anything you want me to check off there, Chip? A lot of the things they've already done. Look at the household hazardous waste program that Carrie and worked on.
So this is all hazardous, or
Yeah.
municipal waste. No, good. And Clay's going,
I'm going.
he's not, just you.
Okay. I checked that off.
Thank you. And one last thing was I didn't know if you folks want to talk about various right to know requests or not, and how to communicate that.
There was correspondence about right to know requests. Did you folks read them?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something you want to talk about today or not.
Listen to his comments.
Yeah, on Friday, I remember talking to the staff about some of this right to know, the questions that are in that file, and the new questions that have come about. And then again, at the budget meeting with the, Guy Pike, who's a member of the budget committee, mentioned that he wanted to see the accounts payable on such and such a.
Sure.
And my response to that was, the accounts payable folders are open to the public anytime they want to see them. And they're sitting in the office. If they want to spend time, and I guess you voted on a policy to have someone with the people reviewing the files, so
Yeah.
they need to make an appointment. But right to know requests need to come to us. Everything else is available. It's only when something isn't available,
Yes.
or our staff feels that they don't want to make it available without asking,
That's right.
that it comes to
How
us.
quickly would you?
And so when Guy Pike or anyone decides they want to look at the accounts payable file, that does not in itself constitute a 91A request. That's just a citizen looking to review records.
Yeah.
The 91A kicks in when we need to decide whether or not that information is going to be made available.
If I remember correctly, there's a wrinkle to that. Once paperwork that's generated by these people is reviewed by a quorum of this body or anybody, that's when it becomes public. It's still a work product technically, when she's typing up the checks and all of that. The other thing is, there's a need for those things to stay in order. That's why someone is there. Now, in the past, and Guy's been very good about this, she has said, would you like a list of the checks that are written? No, it's called the check register, and that has been more than satisfied people. So, and that helps her out. It also helps the citizen out who wanted that basic information.
One of the requests was, I want this accounts payable receipt for this month, and I will want all subsequent ones as the months go by. That's like proactively asking for, and so the question was, or the response was, I guess, they can't do it that way. They have to ask individually.
There has, the court has said there has to be a specific request.
But I think to diffuse that whole issue is to try to enforce in these people's minds and make them aware that all that's available to them without
Yes.
asking.
It's like a
Well, I mean, they
dictionary.
ask, but they just come in and say, I'd like to see the accounts payable file. I mean, it doesn't elevate, it's not elevating itself to some sort of legal maneuver
It's
or
the same as
91A.
the same as this green folder here. It's
Yeah,
correspondence.
all of it is available.
And we make it available.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so finally, or bring this to a close, I did instruct Karen and Diane that they cannot decide a 91A request. They can't make that recommendation or decision because they're not empowered to do that, and they shouldn't be. It shouldn't be on their head to make that kind of decision.
That's correct.
It has to come to us. That's why we were elected. So they get sort of mired in the multiple requests by a few individuals, and they just, if there's a question, they have to just submit the request to the selectmen, And we're not obligated to meet every day of the week. If a request comes in this afternoon, it'll get heard on Friday. Whether or not they like that, and honestly, I'll go to court all day long over that. You know, we're a volunteer board. If we're not meeting this week, it'll get heard next week. You know, that's,
You know,
and we ran into this at the county, and
Yeah.
it just, I get a little animated about this notion that I'm gonna ask on Thursday for them, and they have to answer the question by Friday. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm not here. I'm not gonna come in here either.
And can I please ask what your suggestions would be for, if a document's just not readily available and it's gonna take time, like some of them take hours or day, you know, hours, a couple of days. There's a form, as you know, that we have with our policy. Do you want individuals filling that form out? That's how I understood it. But
well, yes, the purpose of that form is to protect their rights. It also
I just-
it also protects the town's rights. This is what we were requested.
But you haven't enforced that
That's correct.
form in the past, or the recent past.
Right.
So now it appears from the public's standpoint that you're just poking something that's smelly.
How do we avoid that, sir?
Then maybe what you do is say, okay, this policy was enacted, and starting and pick a day in the close future.
I'd be willing
From
to.
this day forward, we're gonna want that.
I would be willing to negotiate.
You know, Max would like a public hearing on it, and I don't have a problem with having this forum
Sure.
that constitute that.
Sure.
I think asking for that today, without having not done it in the recent past, and without any sort of.
It'd be culture shock.
Right.
Well,
Sure.
it's bad form. I don't think that's the way, it just looks like
Yeah.
it's being obstructionist. And
Now, what we don't want to do is single out specific individuals for different treatment.
Yeah, make
Every-
one do it and
every-
somebody else not do it.
Right.
Yeah, I misunderstood that instruction there, because I thought you wanted that.
Everybody
you wanted
ought to
that, so I
be-
misunderstood.
Dealt with in the same
Mhm.
way.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea the form existed.
Oh, well, that was just my misunderstanding. And I
Okay.
thought from that point forward, if something was of a large request, that they had to fill out a form or 91A for a request. I guess maybe I put the word form in there, just thinking.
Right,
because
no,
we
I
have-
when you folks say, okay, it's not in the accounts payable, it's not in readily available files, and it's
Right.
something that I'm not certain is gonna be available, then they need to file a proper 91A,
That maybe that's where I got stuck on the
formal
form. when I
91A
heard proper.
request.
Yeah.
And that comes to us,
Yes.
Whether it be an email or a form or whatever.
whatever,
How-
or how are we gonna do it, and we'll decide how we're gonna. Well, obviously, we're
Well-
doing it by email currently.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
And I think that if you look at the form, if somebody uses that form, then all of the pieces of information that are needed to research and respond to the request is there. And so it can sort of be like a checklist to make sure that
all right.
that we have a good understanding of what it is they're asking for.
Yeah, we're always going to be accused of hiding the ball, even though we're just local citizens like everybody else. But I think, and it would be difficult, I think, on some occasions, for them to be specific enough in that form to include everything in the universe that they want. And it's unfortunate that they don't just tell us what they're looking for, but that is.
That's their right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
So once you folks review it, then we're trying to move ahead with it, is that correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
Unless you tell me otherwise. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right. But most of what I've heard him ask for, or heard any number of people ask for, doesn't really qualify for 91A as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
It's like-
providing
like the-
emails for,
No, with the
a
attorneys,
topic that. if it's
receipts
not-
for the attorney's fees.
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
And stuff
Well,
like
you
that.
guys have to look at the attorney invoices, so that's the problem. So there are little things here and there.
But anyway, I'm sure this.
Well, we have been
conversation-
advised by two councils to do it, have you folks review those.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, it's a work in progress.
And speaking of legal, and I don't want this meeting to go any more than an additional 2 minutes.
You have 1 hour. I have 30 seconds of it.
We actually have bills for ZBA, for legal bills on a VSO case. And we have bills for planning board, for Attorney Murray, who they hired for advice. So I think we need to break that legal line up. There's also some legal bills for the cemetery. We can add a cemetery line. But I think it would be a lot clearer for the public who, for whatever reason, thinks that the three of us sit around and try to figure out ways to spend the legal line.
On that note, I thought you did yeoman's work, trying to answer the specific questions. Thought one individual loses sight of the fact that legal efforts are more than just lawsuits and Perry Mason.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can educate.
Well, you don't, and part of it is, the sort of simplistic look at the world. You have $40,000 or whatever it is on your legal line. Hopefully you don't use it. But are you going to go uninsured? We have no idea what sort of actions might be done.
Well, a perfect example is the only reason why we're involved in Middle Road Trust is we own the dirt road. All the parties in the state have been warring and whatnot. Didn't involve.
Well, we also have 14 employees and we have a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And, it's.
Okay.
It would be unreasonable not to let it go.
We had a voice. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I might just
50.
back to my budget. Should I put the extra 2 in there, and if we get the vehicle, it won't be used, so I don't have to look for it next year?
I don't think you'll have to look for it next year, but.
It's a warrant article, so I'm just curious.
Will $1,000 work for fixing the truck that you currently have? No. So, how much to fix the truck that you currently have?
That's the $3,000 you're saying.
Yeah, it'll be over 2 to fix it, and then we'll leave some in there for oil change and stickers and all.
So
Can't they be mentioned at the budget committee, and if they want to add it, they
yeah,
will?
you give them the choice.
Okay.
Put $3,000 on
Well, I'll be
the
there
line,
then,
fix
I'm
the
just
truck,
curious,
or
because you
wanna
have to approve
If at the end of the
before you
year,
go there.
it's obvious the warrant article isn't going to apply, then we'll add another $2,000.
Right.
Okay.
And the other thing, I finally got an answer back from the cleaner, and they don't want to do it, so. How's that?
Okay.
So,
That's not.
so I can find somewhere else
Yeah.
that'll do it for that money, so.
We only have 10 seconds left.
I'll have to try and do it.
Oh, jeez.
Selectmen's updates.
Okay, I will be brief since I've taken a lot of time already. I just want to highlight that I will be away from the 26th of this month through the 5th of November. Okay?
You have to go away?
Yeah,
I
Have
had
you
no
voted on
idea.
that?
so,
Can you do that? I had no idea you could do that.
You just have to do it.
Meeting dates?
no, there are no meetings scheduled during that time. So our first meeting in November is on the 6th, and I will be here for it.
Okay.
So,
We had a successful budget hearing, or budget meeting with the budget committee. And I don't know what else, we've discussed almost every part of that meeting
yeah.
in different spots during. the
Nice
meeting.
job.
I understand somebody was referring to their constituents.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit. I actually lost to a person when I ran for the county commissioner who was determined that she only represented the people who voted for her. And I have always had a struggle with that. I know that some people, maybe even some people in this room didn't vote for me, but I feel obligated to represent them if I have to vote.
Absolutely so.
I don't think it's, I don't have a constituency, so I don't have.
Everyone's your constituent.
I have a lot of constituent issues, but I don't have any constituencies.
Anything else, sir?
No.
Lake Street boat ramp is being worked on. They're pouring,
Lake Road, yeah.
okay, and River Reach dock replacement is being worked on, so it's gonna be busy with construction equipment. But isn't it nice that both those companies are kind of clogging up the area after Columbus Day? So, anything else? Go ahead.
I'm still confused as to where we are on the right to know requests. If someone comes in and asks for something that they cannot, Diane or Karen cannot do automatically, then it's,
your job as the requestor to make a request of the selectmen.
okay, and wait for them when they're gonna meet. But this form was brought up. When was this form, when did it come into being? I've never heard of this form because when I requested things, there's no
I
form.
heard of it this morning.
It was before I was on this board, so it's been around for a while.
Okay, so is it now? No. Maybe
We're
I haven't had
gonna
enough
talk
coffee.
about it. We're gonna
Okay, so
review
you
it
haven't
again.
decided yet.
Well, we're gonna talk about it and then we're gonna elicit public response, I hope. But I mean, if we're gonna do a forum, we're gonna have, at least some public backing, and we're gonna have it be for everyone.
So at this point, the form is not going to be used until you discuss it in the public.
If a person wants to use it, just so it's a matter of record,
Okay.
it's available.
There was a misunderstanding of the word. I misunderstood
Okay.
the advice
Formal.
on proper.
No, I
directional
understood that. I
request,
just
so I
wasn't
thought he
quite
meant
sure
form.
I had
where
used
we
the
were
word-
at this moment.
I had used the word with Karen, formal request.
Yeah, or something like that, and I took
And
it as the
or
document
the
that we had.
form of the
Oh,
request.
Karen, we don't blame you, we blame the
Right.
select.
I certainly wouldn't listen to me if I were having my choices.
Yeah, someone else had their hand up.
Well, if you do have a form, you could put it online so it doesn't.
It is online.
Okay, so it doesn't take anyone any more time to fill it out. They just do it and send it in. It's not,
And he's been articulate, they both have.
Yeah.
This is not some.
that's not really asking for much. You don't have a meeting next week, is that right?
I have no idea.
I looked on,
Next Monday, that's
Friday.
correct. We don't.
you don't, so you don't for 2 weeks.
Friday
We have a meeting,
Your work
a work session on Friday, yeah.
Okay.
At 8:30, right?
Okay,
Correct?
Yeah.
wow,
8:30?
okay.
Whatever.
I passed along a notice from one of our Wolfboro reps. There's a state energy strategy listening session on Thursday in the Great Hall in Wolfboro, but it's for everyone. It's at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
What they do is they send out a notice for everything, but they don't publicize it. So I don't know how you get people to come, but hopefully your energy committee people and Wolfboro's energy committee people will be there. And also, Bill, as far as grant writing, can volunteers do that?
Sure.
So for instance, you have a lawyer on the energy committee, maybe he would do that.
There's actually a lawyer there.
Yeah.
You might be surprised how many people in this town have been trained to be grant writers. It's a very precise thing. I went through a workshop, and trust me, you'd never find me writing a grant. It's very time consuming.
There's tomorrow at the town house, there's the public health meeting, right?
There is a health meeting here in Tuftonboro, and then there's going to be one in Wolfboro on the 25th. And as far as drop boxes, Wolfboro PD is getting a drop box, I think from Rite Aid, putting it in their lobby. But Wolfboro has a different situation because they're open 24/7, so there's always someone there. That's right. But that is there to make it easy to get rid of drugs from your medicine chest.
And there was that correspondence.
You serve lunch?
Is that it?
They serve lunch?
Anything else?
Back in the day, the selectmen had their meetings at the restaurant.
Or at their home?
Per our discussion Friday,
Someplace they serve drinks.
and you said that the legislature voted for themselves to have an extra session to discuss long-in-tooth conversations of certain subjects. I would like you, next time you see
No. What I said was they specifically exempted themselves from 91A
Okay,
so that they could have in-depth discussions.
so it was a particular in-depth discussion.
No, just the legislature can talk about anything they want, and none of it is subject to the right to know law.
And why can that not be imposed here for
Because
citizens?
everything we do is subject to the right to know law.
We,
We're not exempt. The legislature exempted themselves, not us. We don't have that option.
we only have the authority to do those things that the legislature grants us the authority for.
I think you have the power to do that, so just toss it away.
We could.
Yeah, have to solve- All right, thank you very much.
I don't mean-
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let me make a
Out the
copy
door.
for you.
Thank you very much.